look, I don't mean any disrespect. He just didn't play that well, not for a guy of his caliber.
If they don't run the ball here, I'm going to vomit. I swear to God.
I don't really have any recollection of that at all, but I guess perhaps I blacked it all out.
You know, they won, but I'm going to be miserable all week because they stunk. We're back! Dan and Aldo Gandia are back with Bear. Their Soulz. What are you doing, Dan? How are you?
That was an abbreviated intro, but hey, I'm glad to be back. I had to work 8 to 4 this morning. That's why I couldn't do the show last night. And of course, we didn't do it last week because of the draft. Mm-hmm. So I'm ready to go. We got 3 hours of show here, I hope.
Well, and we have to start by gauging your excitement level over the fact that the Chicago Bears did a bold move up to the 11th overall spot and found themselves with Justin Fields, the Ohio State quarterback. He could be the quarterback of the future, or he could be a Mitchell Trubisky. What do you think?
As I was watching, because I did watch it from pick 1 through 11, I quit watching it immediately after the Bears pick. I kept thinking, well, wow, so the Falcons drafted a tight end. Okay. But Denver's going to draft one of these quarterbacks, though. And then Denver didn't. Mm-hmm. And I was like, holy shit, Carolina didn't. Mm-hmm. I was like, I guess they did get Sam Darnold, but maybe one of these are going to. And then the 10th pick came up, and they said there was a trade. And I was like, this is it. And it was, a false start because Philadelphia and Dallas swapped. And then before I could even complain about it, the Bears had traded up for the 11th. So, yeah, at that moment, because as you know, I'm not a college football fan. Mm-hmm. So I don't watch college football, but still the excitement that I felt at that moment, knowing that one way or the other, because I've heard you talk, I've heard everybody in the bar room talk about basically there were 4 quarterbacks in the draft and maybe 5 if you stretch it that you would be happy taking and saying first round talent. Mm-hmm. And by deductive reasoning, there were 2 left, and maybe the kid from Florida, maybe if you want to count him. But either way, there were at least 2 left. So I knew we were going to get one of them. And that moment was pretty exciting. And the fact that Fields on tape looks like, from what I've seen in the highlights, he's like Dante Culpepper and Cam Newton and just a big guy running over people. I love it.
Yeah, he is, as Matt Nagy said in the press conference, he was told by the Ohio State head coach that this is a generational talent. And he was told that during the middle of the season when they had a conversation about just Ohio State players overall. And that kind of stuck with Nagy. And so when the season was over and he got to really dig into the tape, he said to himself, you know what, this is a generational talent, and he truly is. The only complaint about him is that sometimes it appears that his processing is a little bit slow, particularly when he's being blitzed, but he does so many other things so well. He is as athletic as a Cam Newton. He's got an arm like a Terry Bradshaw, more on him later. And he's a leader, and he's got a chip on his shoulder. Everybody was saying, well, it doesn't look like he's happy to be with the Chicago Bears. Well, the truth is that he was unhappy that he dropped all the way to 11th when he was at the beginning of the college football season slated to be either the very first player chosen overall. A minority of people said that, but the majority of people said that he was going to be the 2nd overall pick. And then the BYU Zach Wilson quarterback guy, he overtook him in evaluations. And then there was this campaign to denigrate Justin Fields. He's got epilepsy. He's the first one out of practice, the first one, all this bullshit stuff. And all of it was either an exaggeration or blatant lies. And so he was pissed off, and he should be. So he's going to show up to Hallis Hall with a chip on his shoulder the size of the Willis Tower or Sears Tower, whatever we call it nowadays. And that's a good thing. And I truly believe in the ability of John DeFilippo to work with this quarterback. The next thing I want to ask you, because this is the raging topic on national television shows and throughout all of Chicago, should he be the starter? Should there be a plan of regardless of what he does in camp, regardless of what he does in studying the playbook, no, sit him just like Patrick Mahomes was sat, and absolutely not give him the starting job. It's Andy Dalton's do or die. What do you think?
You gave Dalton the $10 million a year, and you don't want to influence your decision with the payroll. And obviously, Foles is getting a big chunk of change to be in the room as well. But considering that's part of the context, if you look at the money Dalton's getting with the combination of Nagy always drafting everything that he does around Andy Reid and what they did in Kansas City in 2017, if you combine the money with the fact that it worked in Kansas City by playing Alex Smith that year, you have to think that that's what they're going to try to do. And I think that's what Pace tried to do in 2017. It's just Mike Glennon was a bumbling fucking idiot. If you remember how horrible he was with the exception of the Pittsburgh game, the other 3 games, he was absolutely horrendous. So he kind of played himself out of the lineup. They didn't want to go to Mitch. And I would think now that the benefit of keeping Foles is if Dalton somehow would get hurt, you could at least go to Foles and his big dick. I've already I've bought 2 jerseys from this kid already. I bought the orange one and the navy one. Of course, they haven't arrived yet. But my point is, I'm all in. But I'd like to think that as Bear fans, if we see him this year, then shit's really gone awry. Like they're not winning, or there's just a mass influx of injuries. So let's hope he can be Aaron Rodgers or Steve McNair was another one. They got to play behind Chris Chandler a year or 2. If he could start week 1, 2022, and we could somehow still win in 2021, I think that's a perfect scenario.
Here's how I look at this. Ideally, I mean, it has been a tenet of developing quarterbacks to have them sit. Aaron Rodgers sat 2 or 3 years. Patrick Mahomes sat a year. But in today's NFL, it is easier to develop quarterbacks than you did years ago, because so many coaches have adapted college elements of the college football playbook for their offense. So that's going to help tremendously. Now, Matt Nagy said that when Patrick Mahomes was at Kansas City and Nagy was there for that rookie season, is that Mahomes would get into the huddle and he would yell out the play, 357, and they would say, whoa, the defense can hear you, dude. And that's because Mahomes had never been in a huddle before. And so there was some elements of the game that he needed to learn from scratch, just like Mitchell Trubisky didn't know what a hard count was. But I believe that Justin Fields is further developed than any of those guys. And if he is, if he is as smart as people are saying, that he has the ability to absorb a playbook and instantly recall plays and where this guy needs to be and what to read his ear and so forth, and he goes out during OTAs and Andy Dalton looks like a 33-year-old journeyman quarterback and Justin Fields looks like the second coming of Christ, then fuck all this shit. I don't give a shit. I agree. Throw him in there.
If Dalton's playing terribly, then that's a different part of the context. I'm just on paper. I think on paper, it should be Andy's job to lose right now, if that makes any sense. If he comes out atrociously the way Mike Glennon did, then and the kid's playing well already, then maybe you go to him or maybe you go to Foles. I don't know. But hopefully, what I was saying is hopefully, number one can kind of just chill on the bench a little bit and the Bears can still win. I mean, that's a hopeful, best case scenario.
Zach Sullivan says, disagree, Dan. Fields could be balling out in practice and he could get the nod even if we're winning. Mule says, make it a competition and the best man wins the opening starter's job. 4,000 Clover says, Dan already talking dirty to us. You've been talking dirty to people?
Only to you, Aldo.
And I love every moment of it. By the way, we're going to talk about your sex life a little later in the show. I'll tease that. I'll also tease the fact that we're going to talk about Terry Bradshaw calling Aaron Rodgers soft. And
that is my sex life this week, hearing Aaron Rodgers. Someone talk shit to Rodgers other than me.
That's good. We're going to talk about Charles Leno and his release. Huge news. And we're We're going to talk about a number of other things, and also the movie Kansas City Bomber in 1972, what I think is a classic starring Raquel Welch, and we'll get Dan's opinion on that. He was very nice to send me a DVD copy of it, so I saw it over the weekend. He did too, so we'll talk about that much later in the show, but let's continue talking about Justin Fields.
Well, let me ask you one quick question.
Sure.
I wanted to a moment ago when we were making the quarterback question at the outset, didn't it feel like San Francisco, like when they drafted the other kid third, that was almost like the Bears drafting Trubisky 4 years ago? Is that me alone? I felt like, ooh, that seemed like a stretch with their pick, and I was glad they took him.
Yeah.
But it just felt like that was like, if the Bears would have gotten him, how would you feel right now?
Trey Lance, well, clearly you don't watch Draft on Tap because we had a mock draft all season long. Draft on Tap, Neil Stopchinski and our lead draft analyst, Danny Shimon, they scouted players. And the culmination of the 18 shows prior was the mock draft that we had. I played general manager Ryan Pace. They were the advisors in the draft room. And what happened is that I worked out a trade for the 4th overall pick with Aaron Freeman, who does the Locked On Falcons podcast. He acted as the Falcons general manager. I worked out a trade. It was an awful trade. I traded 3 first-round draft picks. And so we had the choice between Mac Jones and Trey Lance. They wanted Trey Lance. And for the last month, they wanted Mac Jones. And for the last month or so, I wanted Mac Jones too, because I think he's a super accurate quarterback. He might be the quarterback best ready to step into the NFL, because Alabama runs a very NFL-like program. But I kept watching tape of Trey Lance, and I kept hearing these stories about what an intellectual giant this guy was and so forth. And so I threw them a curveball and I picked Trey Lance. Now, you're right. He could be the next Mitchell Trubisky. But the thing about Trubisky that I think was part of his downfall is that he wasn't the brightest bulb in the marquee, so to speak. So while Trey Lance is a superior athlete. Now, Trey Lance does not have the portfolio just like Trubisky doesn't. He played at North Dakota State, so the competition wasn't good. He only played one game in 2020. So there were all these things. But the 49ers fell in love with him because of what they saw on tape, the magnificent arm and athletic capability. And when they talked to the guy and he took his evaluation test and so forth, they go, holy cow, this guy is like smarter than Jesus. So I don't think he's going to be a bust, but who knows? Maybe all 5 of these quarterbacks taken this year could be busts.
Well, let me reshape what I was getting at. Okay. I would say that in all my years of watching the Bears, that this guy created just an enormous amount of electricity just with his name called, perhaps more so than any pick in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. And I know that's a bold statement. I'm not trying to be dramatic, but just the feeling, the universal feeling of almost euphoria from, if you want to call it Bears Twitter, Bears Nation, Bears fans, however you want to depict it. I don't think that anyone else would have given that instant oomph with the pick that Justin Fields did. I mean, it was electrifying in the sense that, like I said, the Bears had the worst offseason imaginable with signing Dalton in those horrible press conferences, and everyone is down and just kicking the corpse of the coach and the general manager and myself included. And then instantly that's all forgotten.
Yeah, it's true. Well, it's like not being able to get a hard on, Dan, and then all of a sudden, not only do you get a hard on, but you'll land a date with Raquel Welch from Kansas City Bomber.
Oh my God, she's amazing.
She is gorgeous.
She still looks. She looks good at like 85 or whatever now. I mean, I know she's had work, but goddamn, she's still hot. But hey, can you think honestly? Because again, I wasn't alive when Walter was drafted, so I don't know what the buzz was in '75 and Walter's drafted, and maybe Walter's the outlier. Let me rephrase it. Other than Walter, because I don't know if you could remember where you were when Sayers and Butkus were drafted, but other than those big 3 names, who else in your lifetime, my lifetime, in modern times has created that kind of buzz just from being drafted with the Bears?
That's a great question. a great question. It wasn't Urlacher. Urlacher was a safety from New Mexico, and he was a 10th, 11th pick.
And we won in Plaxico Burris.
That's right. That's right. Who would have probably shot himself in the balls years earlier on Rush Street, as opposed to later in his career. Boy, oh boy, help me out, chat room. What do you guys think about that?
Maybe Wilbur Marshall? Maybe
Wilbur, yeah,
because he fell a little bit in the
he
draft.
He did. There were concerns, I think, about just how reckless he could be, but yeah, he was a stud. Walter, there was a lot of buzz. He was the 4th overall pick, but a lot of people in Chicago didn't see his games because he was at Jackson State and they weren't on TV much here. So JMNA says Walter Payton, 4,000 Clovers. The question is, who was the last guy drafted in the first round by the Chicago Bears that created such a buzz like the Justin Fields buzz? And yeah, this has been dramatic on national TV. Everyone was starting their show saying the Bears have finally got their quarterback. It hasn't been since Sid Luckman that they got a quarterback, and Sid Luckman wasn't even drafted. I think he was acquired in a trade. So it's huge because of the history that the Chicago Bears have for terrible quarterbacks. Gregory Dyke says Mark Carrier. No. Dick Butkus, maybe, but Butkus was drafted in 63. Sayers and both of those guys were drafted in the first round, Butkus and Sayers. So I would suppose that for draft nicks of the time, I was still sucking my thumb at the time, that was huge news, but the draft was not nearly as big as it is now. And so I bet you that was like 3 pages into the sports section, Butkus and Sayers being drafted. So I think this is it, Dan. I think Justin Fields is the biggest draft pick from a seismic standpoint in Bears history.
Yeah, if you think about when Neil Anderson was drafted, I mean, you still had Walter, so no one's like beaming over Neil Anderson at the time, although he proved to be a solid running back.
Absolutely.
And when Jim Harbaugh's drafted, the context of the story at the time was, when is Jim McMahon coming back? And you still had Tom Zach, you had Fuller, and you had Doug Flutie. So it's not like anyone was like, oh, we've got our kid from Michigan, Jim Harbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the only thing I could even equate it to is in 98, if the Bears had drafted Randy Moss, as opposed to Curtis Enos making that kind of splash. I think this is the biggest splash draft pick in my lifetime.
I have to agree. Now, who is it? Somebody, Zach, my man Zach says, Covert and Galt in 83, ? That is good. I mean, I don't think it's as big as Justin Fields, but I remember that draft in 83. And when they got those 2 guys, I was like, holy shit, this is great. Because at the time, Jim Finks, general manager of the Chicago Bears at the time, was preaching, we build in the offensive line. And this kid from Pittsburgh, Jimbo Covert, he's going to go be blah, 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 blah. And then they added the fastest guy available in college football, Wooly Galt. And that was really, really huge. But still not quite like Justin Fields. Still not at all like Fields, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that when they drafted Devin Hester in the 2nd round. Now, again, at the time, of course, he was in the secondary, but we knew that he was going to be a returner. And if you recall that year, the Bears tried to sign Antoine Randall, and he blamed Lovey, said that there was a miscommunication, that it was Lovey's fault, and ultimately he went to Washington. The point is, you knew at the time Devin Hester was being drafted to return kicks. And that immediately started on opening day of 06 with a return for a touchdown. But still, it didn't have the feeling, like I said, this Justin Fields thing. And I think, to me, it's unequivocal. Like, just the buzz and the universal praise. Like you said, there were some people knocking him. But when, like, the networks are saying that the Bears got it right, when is the last – like, even when we got Cutler – again, I was very happy. A lot of people, like you said, you weren't. So that's what I'm saying. Even to me, I was that happy the day of the Cutler trade, but so many other people were lukewarm to it, including Brian Urlacher.
Mm-hmm.
So again, other than, I mean, this is it where most people are on board.
Yeah. A lot of people are bringing up McMahon's name, Kent Capers, a number of other people, Gregory Dykes. And I think that is probably the second. And it was not only just his selection, but it was his entrance to Chicago. He gets out of the limo. He's wearing sunglasses. He's holding a can of beer. He holds his press conference. It was clear that this guy was a bad boy. That was huge news then. And the feeling about quarterbacks back then in the 80s was the same as it is now. When the fuck are we going to get a quarterback? You know, I mean, we had gone through guys like Kent Nix and Bobby Avellini, a parade of awful quarterbacks because the Bears never placed any value on quarterbacks. Well, they finally drafted a kid, and it was totally against type for a Chicago Bears organization that, you know, loved the crew cut that Mike Ditka wore. This guy was totally different. And so I would say that's second behind Justin Fields. Justin Fields comes with the pedigree of potentially being his college, although McMahon broke records at BYU, and I was super excited for that. A guy that can throw the ball, really, and breaks records. But Fields, there's something different about him. The fact that he's so multidimensional, this is huge. This is really, really huge. And as you mentioned earlier, you've already got your Justin Fields jersey in the mail, huh?
Well, it hasn't been shipped yet, but I've already ordered. I ordered the orange one and the navy one thus far. Now,
do you have all of your Bears quarterbacks jerseys in a closet, all in order of draft order?
No, they're just they're just together. Usually, when they become obsolete, and like I'm not gonna like David Terrell or something, you know, Tank Johnson, the ones I'm not gonna wear, they're at the end. And then there's some like Curtis Conway or Eric Kramer that I won't wear that much, but I can throw them on too. So they're kind of over here. And then I still wear it took me a few years, but like I'm wearing the 1940s throwback elite Cutler right now. But for like 3-4 years, I wouldn't wear the Cutler ones because I didn't want people to think I was stupid and thought the J was still a Bear. You have to let it age a little bit after he's gone. But yeah, for the most part, it's kind of itemized in sort of the way I would wear him. Or like Trubisky will never be worn again, probably.
I have one too. That was a gift because I don't buy jerseys of players unless their careers are over. And I know, okay, you know, like I got the Butkus jersey behind me. This one was a gift, and I actually have another one as well. Both of them were gifts because people know that I love Butkus so much. I will not purchase a jersey of a present player because I did. When Sammy Sosa played with the Cubs, and now, you know, I don't even know where that fucking jersey is. I don't want to see it. Hey, Swanky32 says that he lives in Kennesaw, Georgia, and Justin Fields lives in Kennesaw, and he had such an amazing feeling when Fields was drafted that the next day he went to his high school field and he soaked it up and it felt so good. Swanky, if you can get some photos and if you can talk to his high school football coach and so forth and bring him on the show, we'll let you interview him, Swanky, and Dan and I will play second fiddle to you. So there's your challenge. By the way, speaking of interviews, I invited Larry Borum, the offensive tackle who was drafted by the Chicago Bears in round 5. He accepted the invitation, and he might join us later tonight. I don't know for sure if he is, but he did accept. He said, yeah, thanks, exclamation. I sent him the link, and then this morning I asked him, you know, hey, can you pop in whenever? And he did not respond, and it happens with a lot of athletes. Sometimes they get too busy and don't have a chance to respond. But if he joins us, it's part of the reason I'm wearing my Mizzou t-shirt today. My stepdaughter went to Missouri for a year and bought me this. All right. Any final thoughts on Justin Fields before we get to the 10,000 other topics we want to cover today?
The one guy that I wish we could have on right now, and it's like he probably would have done our podcast, but given what happened to him last season, he would assume that we were just trying to get him to, you know, relive that moment over and over and over. But Tom Brennaman is such a huge Ohio State fan.
Ooh, good.
And yeah, Tom Brennaman is such a genuine guy and is friendly and stuff, but I mean, he may be bigoted toward homosexuals based upon what he said. But then again,
That's right. I forgot about that.
but the guy apologized and he lost both of his jobs. So, I mean, I would like to think that he wouldn't have to get kicked the rest of his fucking life. But, if we asked him to be on, he would think that we were wanting him to talk about that incident.
Yeah, and we wouldn't. I would tell him, I'll try to reach out to him somehow, some way, and say, we just want to talk about Justin Fields. And see,
he is a huge Ohio State fan. If you think about it, he was, obviously he worked for the Cubs at various points, but his dad was the Reds announcer for years on radio, Marty Brennaman, and that's where he grew up. And so, listening to him on the Reds games for 2 decades, not just Marty, but Tom, like I said, he's always talking Ohio State football.
Mm-hmm.
And because he worked for Fox, he saw the Bears a lot. So, like I said, to me, that would be the perfect guest in this scenario for him to talk about all the Bears quarterbacks games he's called and how this is going to be the guy. But like I said, we can't talk to him because, I don't want to sound like Tucker Carlson here saying that it was cancel culture, but he's kind of canceled.
He really is. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he's toxic right now. Hopefully, if he really is a good guy and that was kind of an isolated incident, hopefully he gets another opportunity to do his job because he does it really well. He is a top-notch broadcaster. All right, so you mentioned that. Now it's time to talk about the big news of the day, Charles Leno Jr. being released by the Chicago Bears. What was your immediate reaction to that news?
I'm not a Leno apologist. I don't want to call you an apologist, but you defend him more so than anybody else in Chicago, I would think, or at least in the Chicagoland area. And I don't mean that as a swipe at all. I'm not to that much of a defender, but I'm not to the other side that wanted him stoned and killed either. Like the guy, what was his name, that was talking so much shit because Bobby Bombs didn't tell him he sucked on the interview. Remember that guy?
Yeah, it was Chubbs. Chubbs might be in the chat room now.
Well, tell him, shout out to him. I don't mean any disrespect to him either. I was just saying his opinion's valid in that regard if he didn't like him. I was kind of in the middle, but I think if we could take a step back and let's say it's 2023 for a minute, 2024, when they reevaluate the playing career of Charles Leno and you say, this guy was a 7th round pick and to nearly make 100 starts consecutive, he definitely outplayed where he was drafted. Again, is he a Hall of Famer? Of course not. But he gave you service and years, and it's unfortunate that so many people have this palpable disdain for him. I wish him well. I do, and I think he did the best he could. I mean, a 7th round pick, man. Come on.
Yeah, on our weekend draft on tap, Danny Shimon and I did it solo because Neil Stopchinski had a family matter to attend to, and we were evaluating the offensive tackles, and we talked about Tevin Jenkins, the 2nd round pick that the Bears traded up for. And Danny is of the firm opinion that Jenkins is not really doesn't have the qualities to play the left tackle position. So we got a lot of buzz on that in the chat room. And so I'm listening to the Olin Kreutz and Jason McKee podcast on that was released today. I think after this podcast, Dan and Aldo Bears host, I think theirs is the best podcast on a national level that people should listen to. I've got a clip of Olin and McKee talking about the release of Charles Leno Jr. And we pick it up in the middle of a thought.
Been a lightning rod for a lot of Bears fans. I thought he was solid, played to about the level that they paid him at, middle of the pack, left tackle, guy who was drafted in the 7th round, hasn't missed a game in 5 years. If you go back through the Bears drafts, J-Mac, Leno probably was the best Bears draft pick at tackle since Jimbo Covert in 1983. So, turn that 7th round pick into a pretty good career. The thing that bugs me about that release, J-Mac, is the fact that you could have saved the same amount of money cutting Jimmy Graham.
93 consecutive starts in the 7th round pick. I mean, that's huge. That's huge. And he's another guy too, like you mentioned, you're trying to save money. You can get rid of Jimmy Graham. You already have Cole Kmet there. But at the same time, this is a guy who's played a lot of ball, who could help some of the young guys that you just brought in, help them turn into pros. Obviously, Tevin Jenkins got a lot of promise, but he still has to learn what it means to be a pro in the NFL. Completely different game. Larry Borum, same thing. You know, you have a guy on that line who's played a lot of football, you know, who could help mentor these guys, help bring them along faster, but also help continue to develop the young guys who got a lot of playing time last year, like our guys, Alex Bars and Sam Mustapher, continue to help building that relationship with those guys to help them guys be a better pro from a guy who's, granted, not costing you a whole lot, but you could have made some other moves to keep that guy, and he could have been that mentor along the offensive line.
That their offense is so bad at scoring points that they got to keep a guy like Jimmy Graham, I guess, in their mind. That's the way they prioritize.
Right.
And that's the way it looked for years, right? They prioritize these skill guys over linemen in that building when they're collaborating. The word they use when they're all collaborating,
right.
They come up with, how do we save money? Well, we cut our left tackle, who, like you just said, starting left tackle, who you just said has 93 starts around. It just seems to me, okay, now we're going to talk about development and developing these guys. I think most guys you ask would tell you that Tevin Jenkins fits better at right tackle.
Yeah.
So now your immediate decision is to cut the left tackle and probably move Tevin Jenkins to left tackle.
Yeah.
And you know, his arm length is a question for some. His pass blocking is a question for some. It doesn't seem to me like the Bears are going to prioritize running the ball, although they might with the way they're going. Yeah. That might be what they're thinking. But just these are the questions. These are the things you have questions about, even though they had a good draft. Your plan and developing these players, J-Mac, that is crucial.
I think that Olin is supporting my opinion and Danny's opinion. First of all, Charles Leno was not nearly as bad as he was portrayed by so many analysts. You know, we had a guy here at the bar room, Draft Dr. Phil, who used to really enjoy blasting Charles Leno, and I just never saw it. Yes, he got blown away by a defensive back on a couple of plays. Yes, he missed his assignments more than we would have liked. But you're also forgetting that this guy was a really serviceable left tackle for almost 100 games. He delivered more value than anyone ever expected. And I see stuff on social media saying he never made a good block. That is fucking bullshit. That is fucking bullshit. Charles Leno played well, but when he played poorly, it was amplified. And in his 2018 season, when he was named as an alternate to the Pro Bowl and actually got to play the game, he played really well. There weren't any complaints about Leno then. 2019 season, he was horrible. He had a bad year. Could have been because he got married, had a kid, or could have been because he signed a new contract. I don't know what it was, but he had a bad year. 2020, this past season, I thought he was serviceable. He was back to that average left tackle. And if you think that he was the worst left tackle in the NFL, then you haven't seen the other left tackles like Olin was talking. There are other guys that play the position much worse. Oh, but he was among the most penalized guys in the NFL. Well, guess what? Some of the top left tackles in the NFL were penalized more than Leno. Bakhtiari, the left tackle for the Packers, look at his penalties and compared to Leno. A number of other guys, Jedrick Wills, who was a top draft pick and had a rookie of the year type season at left tackle, more penalties. So the left tackle position you are going to hold. Trust me, Tevin Jenkins, he said it himself. You keep your quarterback clean. I don't care if you got to hold. I don't care if you got to punch somebody in the balls or whatever. It happens with that position. You let somebody get away from you, you're going to hold him because you don't want your quarterback to be hit by the blind side. Now, the false start penalties, he had 4 last season. That's an issue. A veteran player should not have 4 false start penalties. But I'm not saying that he was the best left tackle. I'm not saying he was the top 10. I'm saying he was, just like Olin Kreutz said, he was in that mid-tier of left tackles. And it's a shame that he is being ridiculed and dragged through the dirt on his way out of town. He's a classy guy. He has done a lot for Chicago, and I don't think he deserves the bullshit thrown his fucking way.
I appreciate your passion on this subject. I think in a lot of ways, it's kind of the way Greg Braggs and I felt and feel about Mitchell Trubisky, and the way we defended Trubisky, that he wasn't the worst and played better than people gave him credit for, and his statistics aren't horrible. Those all these things that we could put that they seem to win when Mitch was there, you know, all these things. But I guess not that I'm a huge let's side with Ryan Pace guy, but for better or worse, I feel like that the Bears decided that they wanted to improve at the quarterback position and move on from Mitchell. And I think they wanted to improve at the left tackle position. Now, both of these acquisitions could prove to be busts for all we know, God forbid, but at least they're making an effort. They've put a first round pick in at the quarterback position. They've selected Jenkins as a second round pick. So you're putting investment there. And so it's a gamble. It is a gamble to get rid of Leno, but I think they saw him and he did okay given where he was, but we can do better. We want to do better.
I totally agree.
I think that they're sort of like Mitch, kind of like Mitch.
There are, I can't think of a position that we can't get better at. Even our best player, Khalil Mack, we deserve better than what he has delivered in terms of results, in terms of sacks, in terms of pressures and so forth. Eddie Jackson, another big paid player. On and on. Every position on this roster, we deserve better. There's no fucking doubt about that. But the issue is, like Olin is saying, is why did you keep Jimmy Graham when cutting him would have been the same, saved the same amount of money as Charles Leno? There has to be a reason behind this. That the giving the left tackle position automatically to Jenkins, to me, doesn't make sense. An unproven left tackle when so many scouts say he's better for the right side. Now, if you go back to Saturday's press conference, this is what Ryan Pace said when he was asked about Hub Arkish, about potential free agents.
There's some things that, Joey and I know that we need to do as we look at our cap and our situation. And, we have plans in place for that. And those are kind of the next steps, before we're able to kind of take a deep breath.
Okay, I'm not asking for names, but will you continue to look at street vets as well?
Of course. Yeah. There's guys on our board right now, Hub, that we're still looking at. So, to answer your question, yes. And then there's guys still that we have targeted with other teams that could be potential cuts or potential trades that we're watching closely.
Let me put you at ease here, Aldo. I got a quote for you.
Okay.
This will make you feel better, I think, given the fact that you love Dick Butkus and all the Bears fans, including myself, love that aura that Butkus had, even though we didn't get to watch him play. When asked to describe his style of play, Tevin Jenkins said, quote, "Tough, physical, nasty motherfucker. A dude who does not shy away from hits. A dude who actually wants to get physical. And a dude who wants to bust his ass." I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on here. Sorry. End quote. That's fucking phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah.
That sounds like something Kyle Long would have said. And what I fear, as I told you before we went on air, I don't want them to fuck with this kid the way they did Kyle Long. Like, well, you're going to play right guard, but hey, before the season starts, maybe we'll make you a right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
If it's going to be left tackle, then put him there and let him learn and let him grow. Don't be fucking around and changing him. Is he Cody Whitehair at center? Is he left guard? Is he right guard? Like, put this kid in a position and let him play, and let's go.
So if you take that approach, Dan, would you then say you definitely have to start Andy Dalton? Because what you're doing is essentially saying to the quarterback, hey, you might be a crash test dummy here because we've got an unproven rookie playing left tackle. He didn't even play the left tackle position exclusively in college. We're just throwing him over there. So, Andy, watch your back.
Well, we don't know that he's going to struggle either.
There's no way he's going to come in and perfect that left tackle position immediately. Come on.
They may sign a veteran. You heard Ryan Pace.
There you go. And that leads to what I was just going to say after that soundbite is there is no doubt in my mind, that there's going to be a veteran left tackle signed by the Chicago Bears, and it could even be Charles Leno Jr. These veterans are out there testing the market right now. They're finding out. Charles Leno Jr. could say, you know what, the market isn't what I thought it was going to be. Chicago, how about if I come back at half the contract? And that could happen. Eric Fisher, left tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs, who suffered an Achilles injury or an ACL injury in the playoffs. They say that he should be ready by the start of the season. Why not? He played for Matt Nagy. There could be a relationship there. There are a number of other veteran left tackles, older than Leno, like Russell Okung, who played for the Seahawks for many years. That would be great. You got Ifedi on one side and Okung on the other side. It's Russell Wilson would probably be laughing, but I think they need to bring in a veteran left tackle, because if they're going to put Jenkins over there and it's a disaster, then you need a veteran.
Well, maybe this is our generation, or not that I'm of this generation. I'm too old to say that, but maybe this is the millennium version of Jim Covert, and we don't know it yet. Maybe this kid's going to thrive at left tackle. Let's see. I mean, the draft was last week, but maybe, like you said, they sign a veteran, and that could alleviate pressure to have him start week 1 against whomever that's going to be. We'll find out next week. When the schedule's disseminated finally. But again, I think that's the least of our problems right now. I'm happy with the pick myself.
I'm happy that they picked up Tevin Jenkins, because like many people have said, he was considered a first-round caliber offensive tackle. I'm just concerned whether he's got the left tackle capabilities. I'm just concerned that we allowed a veteran left tackle who would have been a good placeholder until Jenkins or whoever is ready to take his place. And when you could have saved the same amount of money by allowing Jimmy Graham to go and giving Cole Kmet more responsibility and working, there's some good free agent tight ends out on the street, like McCole Pruitt, for instance, a guy who was with the Chicago Bears for a little while and then went to the Vikings, played well, and has gone on to a couple of other teams. He's a darn good tight end, and there are a number of others that could help. Plus, you've got Jesper Horsted, you've got there's another rookie on this team, or another young guy on this team that I kind of like. But the point being is that I just think it's dangerous. I agree with Olin. I think it's dangerous to release your starting left tackle, almost 100 games starting, release him, and then say, okay, we're going to start the rookie who only played a handful of games at left tackle, and then we're going to try to sign a veteran left tackle. It's a risky move. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I definitely can't argue with Olin Kreutz when it comes to line play. So if that's the thought process, the consensus on the move, then he knows more than I know. So I'll agree with it. But maybe Ryan Pace knows more than all of us because we're not in the same room. Maybe he already has his eyes on a veteran.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's still May, so we'll see.
Right. I'm sure that he does. I am positive that he does. And like he said in that soundbite, there could even be a trade. There could even be they're looking at all these guys that are going to be cut June 1st. They've got a board, just like they had the board when Khalil Mack. They knew that there was tension going on there between Mack and the Raiders management team. And so they were plotting that out, the possibility of that happening. So that is one of the good things that the Chicago Bears do, is that they plan ahead. They look at every potential scenario. I still think that it's not Tevin Jenkins' job immediately. and that we'll see. It could be a veteran that comes in, and then Jenkins will either play the right tackle position and eventually move to left tackle, or that Jenkins and that veteran will fight for that left tackle position, which is the way that it should be. Everybody should fight for a job. Dalton and Fields should be fighting for that quarterback job. Even Khalil Mack should be fighting for his job, right?
No. Khalil Mack should be ready to come back and somehow recapture the fire of 2018.
There you go.
I'm not telling him he has to compete for anything. Like, just come on in. Don't be complacent.
Mm-hmm.
But, you don't want to disrespect, 52. He's starting.
So how do you feel overall about the offensive line, given now that Leno's gone, and let's just say, for the sake of this hypothetical, Jenkins is going to be at left tackle. At the left guard, it'll probably be Cody Whitehair. At center, it'll probably be Sam Mustipher. At right guard, I believe
James Daniels.
Yeah, I believe it'll be James Daniels, or you could flip those two guards, Whitehair to the right and Daniels to the left. And then the right tackle, I believe, is going to be Jermaine Nafidi, or if Larry Borum comes to camp and says, hey, Jermaine, I'm going to kick your ass and beat you for this job, and does, then. So how do you feel about the offense?
Don't forget Alex Bars has been developed. I mean,
yeah, there's depth.
Dynamic.
Yeah.
So Bars is a good guy that could come in and play guard or obviously center, which we don't want, but he did. Oh, no. He started a game at center, and he's played tackle. So the line, at least it looks like they've put effort into it. Versus, I don't know. I mean, people could get hurt, but on paper, it looks like we won't be stuck in that situation where you're playing Tennessee last year, and you're like, okay, Alex, you have to start at center today. Mm-hmm. Who the fuck is playing today? We don't know. The Bears, at least the line has been addressed, and that's all I could ask for. If you ask me going into the draft, and I'm sure we did talk about it on here at some point. I can't remember exact quotes, but, I thought other than quarterback, I would have been happy if the Bears stayed at 20 and drafted someone that was an ideal left tackle. I would have been like, okay, that's a solid pick. And given that the Kyle Fuller's gone, I would have probably been, happy with the corner. But beyond that, like quarterback, still nothing takes the way we feel with Fields being or not signed, but drafted. Like those moves wouldn't compare at all. But I'm just saying those are things we needed. I wanted the line addressed as a fan, and they've done it. So I like that. And they were talking about maybe the Cowboys are supposed to cut one of their corners now. Maybe that's somebody you could look at, because I'm not happy. Like, again, he's not on here, so I don't want to besmirch him, but I was going back and forth with Zimmerman, whom I like and respect, and but he was telling me corners like not important, and my head was about to explode. Like, what? When it was at the moment when we drafted that fucking the running back from Virginia Tech. I was like, gosh, I wish they would have gone corner there.
Yeah.
And he was like, we don't need a corner. Corner. We need offense. This league's about offense. I was like, exactly. So we have to stop Green Bay's wide receivers or Minnesota's wide receivers. We have to have somebody back there. I'm not happy with the corner situation, but he has a completely differing opinion on that, and I'm not sure how, but he does.
Steve Zimmerman says hello. He's in the chat room and says, I'm here, Dan. I'm here if you need emotional support in any way. By the way, Chubbs just joined us, and he goes, see, I told you about Leno. You got cut. And so clearly Chubbs missed the section where Olin Kreutz thought it was a stupid move. So, that I encourage everybody to listen to that podcast. Not only this recent episode of, the No Name podcast with Olin Kreutz and Jason McKee, but I've listened to a couple of episodes, and I really do believe it is one of the best podcasts out there, especially for Chicago Bears stuff. So take a listen to that. One of the things that they talked about was, this whole tough guy. Olin says, he almost talked about that sound quote that quote that you referred to, Dan, and he said, you know what? The Bears drafted a guy who said the very same thing. His name was Mark Columbo. And Jason McKee says, "Oh, come on, don't talk about my boy like that." And Olin says, "Yeah, I know Mark was good, and he never got to play that mean type of football because he had a serious kneecap injury. But when somebody comes into the NFL and they got this tough guy, they talk all this tough stuff." That doesn't mean shit in the NFL. You got to go out there and play tough. And so take that for what it's worth. Anyway, it's a great podcast. Dan Aguirre, are you ready to talk about your man, Aaron Rodgers?
He's my man. All right, I do want to say this.
Please.
There is no way unequivocally that the Green Bay Packers are going to trade this guy. It's not happening. You might, I think the best case scenario, I say worse for them, but best for us as Chicago Bears fans. Mm-hmm. Maybe you have a fork in the road similar to, like, say 1999 when Barry Sanders was like, "Fuck Detroit, I want out of here." And they're like, "We're not trading you. You're a best player. You're the best player we've ever had. Mm-hmm. We're not trading you." And then Barry just rolled off into the sunset and never played again. And maybe Aaron Rodgers is going to, say, "Well, I could go host Jeopardy." Maybe they call him on his shit and say, "Well, go host Jeopardy. Mm-hmm. Pay us back your fucking signing bonus, motherfucker."
That's right.
but in one regard, Rodgers, I guess, he's basically divorced his brother and his mom. His dad doesn't have any contact with anybody. So he's willing to just fucking cut you off. That's right. His personality shows that he can do that without any remorse whatsoever. He's probably psychotic in that regard. And he doesn't need any money. So I could see him just retiring because fuck it. But if I'm the Packers, there's no way I'm trading him. And I don't think that they're going to. In fact, Rodgers allegedly sent a text to Mark Schlereth, who was propagating this ridiculous shit on Thursday, that the Broncos, it's imminent, that the trade is going to happen. And Rodgers himself reportedly sent Schlereth a text and was like, "Who's your source? Mm-hmm. Who the fuck is your source? Let me know. I want to know. I want to be moved." Mm-hmm. And of course, Stink didn't have an answer because he's just making this shit up.
Yep. Very true. By the way, that issue with his family, from what I have learned, is that Aaron is an atheist and his family is very, very religious, very Christian-like and so forth. And so they've had some battles regarding some theological issues. And so because of that, Aaron said, "You know what? I don't need this." And that's why he is estranged from his family. And that is
but look, I'm the only non-believer in my family that I'm aware of. Mm-hmm. And there's just no way that I would have ever just cut my mother off.
Mm-hmm. Well, but you don't know.
No way.
You don't. What if your mother said, if you aren't going to believe in Jesus, then I don't want to have anything to do with you? What if she said that?
I guess it's a possibility. Mm-hmm. You would think, though, maybe I'm just ignorant to his situation. You would think that given that someone's your mom and your dad, you would find a way to alleviate whatever the burden is in between their relationship, just because it's your fucking parents, bro. Mm-hmm. Speaking of parents, I'm going to steal a segment. You mentioned him earlier. Sure. I want to give a shout out. I spoke to former friend of the bar room, Mr. Shane Marsaw.
Oh, how is Shane?
Via text. He's well. That's why I was going to give him a shout out, because what made me think of it was I was actually texting you and I didn't realize you were on air at that moment. So I was like, I'm sorry, man. But I thought that the Bears draft hat, I was like, God damn it, this hat looks like something from 1984. It's horrible. Mm-hmm. I was like, this hat is just complete and utter shit. And I remember Shane always saying that every year he buys everyone that's watching with him the draft hat. Right. So I texted him. I was like, "Did you buy this year's hat? Because it's complete and utter shit." And he goes, I did. And then we went back and forth for just a minute. And he said that he's about to be a father again.
Well, good. Congratulations to him. I know they have been trying for a while, so that's great news.
Yeah, he's going to have a daughter.
Wow. Riley is going to have a daughter. Congratulations, Riley. and the Marsaw family, that is great news. And by the way, I am looking at the Chicago Blackhawks game. An empty net goal means that the Blackhawks are going to lose by 3 goals. I bet on the Hurricanes minus the 1.5. So I win $150. Yay!
Congratulations on the money. No sarcasm. One more thing I wanted to force into the show tonight, other than the Marsaw shout out. I was deeply touched, like in a negative way, I guess. I mean, it's not negative for me because it's not my body, but I felt so badly for Steve Mongo McMichael watching that video that I can't remember if it was the Sun-Times or the Tribune posted. It had some great quotes. He was like, yeah, he's got Lou Gehrig's disease, and he said it came up, it surprised him like a dirty hit from a Green Bay Packer. Obviously a reference to Charles Martin, a cheap shot, but
right.
And he said that he would do it all over again, even if it meant that they told him if you didn't play, you wouldn't get ALS. He's like, fuck it, I'm still playing. And he's got all these great quotes, but he looks so horrible.
Yeah.
Like, I feel so badly for Mongo. He's such a character. Obviously he was a wrestler too. He teamed with Ric Flair in the Four Horsemen.
Yeah.
In 96, 7, 8, in that era.
Right.
I mean, just to see him that broken down is really sad
really
to me. In Bears history, like, wasn't Doug Atkins someone that had that happen to him, where he, not necessarily ALS, but his body just was a shell of himself?
I don't know. That sounds like it could be true. It is sad when you see these superhero football players. I mean, when the perfect example is Walter Payton, when he had the press conference and he looked so shriveled and so forth. I literally cried. I mean, this was my hero. I met him the 1986 season, the Mike Ditka show. I was working at WBBM TV at the time. I went into the green room where he was sitting, waiting for him to be called out to go out onto the studio with Ditka and Johnny Morris, who did the show, and Ginny Morris. And I went over to him and I shaked his hand, and his hand was twice the size of my hand. It totally enveloped my hand, and he gripped it. And I don't think he was squeezing hard, but it sure felt like it. And he was just Superman. He was a stud. And so when I saw him in that press conference where he announced that he had this liver disease, I cried. It's you hate to see your heroes go through something like that. And the same thing when I saw Steve McMichael and how shriveled up he was. It's really sad. But I'll tell you one thing. If I ever get a disease like that, I hope I handle it like Steve McMichael is. I mean, and he's got
give the Bears credit for buying him a wheelchair.
Yep.
It's some kind of, top of the line wheelchair that he himself couldn't even afford, reportedly.
Yep.
And the Bears spent the money on it. So give them praise for that.
Yeah, it's sad. And the other good thing about the McMichael story, when you're trying to find silver linings, is that his wife looks like she is an angel from heaven. The way she doted over him, the way she talks about him, the way she's caring for him and so forth. Any one of us that has to go through something like that, if we're lucky to have a spouse or a significant person in our lives that cares for us the way she is caring for him, then that is a blessing. Whether you're an atheist or not, that is a blessing. All right. I want to play, set this up for us, the Terry Bradshaw thing. Actually, you didn't know that he actually set this on camera, right?
Right. I read an article about it that had extensive quotes, and I assumed that he said it to somebody because, again, they were quoting him, but I didn't know if he was, being quoted from a text, an email, how that was actually conveyed. I didn't know. So I did not hear the audio, but it was fascinating to me that, and Bradshaw didn't even mention Joe Gilliam. Being a guy coming and taking his job, because if you know the history of Terry and the Steelers, going into the year that they won the Super Bowl the first time, 1974, that season Joe Gilliam got the start, and he was so frustrated that he went to Al Davis and he said, "Al, get me the fuck out of here, trade for me." get me over here. And Al was like, man, we still got Daryl LaMonica. We got this Stabler guy it's coming along. We still have George Blanda. I don't have a spot for you. And as the Lord would go, Al said he made the worst mistake he could have made. He called the chief, Art Rooney, and said, hey, what are you doing, man? You've got this Bradshaw kid. He's the first pick in the draft. He's your guy. You need to play him. Like, why are you fucking around with this other guy, And at the end of that season, Terry beats the Raiders in the AFC Championship game and then wins the Super Bowl. So my point is, he didn't even address that. He brought up the fact that they drafted Mark Malone in the first round. They brought in Cliff Stout, who was like, I think, a third or fourth round pick. Bradshaw was like, the whole time I was there, they were looking to replace me and bringing other people in. So if you can't fucking deal with it, then you're a bitch. Basically, he called him whiny and said the fact that Rodgers wanted the GM fired for him to come back was complete, like, egregious, like, horseshit. So the fact that someone else was criticizing Rodgers made me extremely happy. So I would love to hear the audio.
All right. Well, it's coming right at you. This is the name of the show. Darn it, I should have wrote it down. You'll see it on the screen, and then after, for our audio only audience, I'll mention the name of the show. But he's being interviewed here by a woman and a man, and this is Terry Bradshaw. The question sets it all up.
We know that Rodgers is not happy with the organization. There's a chasm between the two. Does Rodgers have a right to be this upset with the Packers?
With him being that upset shows me just how weak he is. Who the hell cares who you draft? I mean, he's a 3-time MVP in the league, and he's worried about this guy they drafted last year at number 1. Now, I don't know what was said behind the scenes. I don't know if he said, look, I'll play this year, and then I want out of here, and they said, fine. Then he's the MVP in the league. I don't know. None of us know, unless he told some insiders, and they're saying it. I don't hear it. And for him to be upset, my God, I don't understand that. Pittsburgh drafted Mark Malone, number 1, Cliff Stout in the 3rd or 4th round. I had them coming at me from all angles. I embraced it because when we went to practice, I wasn't worried about those guys. It didn't scare me a bit. So I don't understand why he's so upset at Green Bay. And then if they fired the general manager, he'll come back. Are you kidding me? Really? Aaron, that's where this is. Here's what I'd do. I wouldn't budge. Let him gripe. Let him cry. Retire. You're 38. Go ahead and retire. See you later. I mean, I'm really strong about stuff like that. And it just makes him look weak. In my way of looking, it makes him look weak. How dare you draft somebody? Or, I played better. What did he say? I played better than they thought I would. Or I don't know. Oh, me being the MVP really screwed them, really messed them up. Well, you're going to make, I don't know how much money. That obviously he doesn't need the money. So probably he's just retire and go do Jeopardy. It's the way I look at it, but I wouldn't budge. I'm strong about stuff like that. I wouldn't budge a bit. Either he gives in and Green Bay don't give in. Move on.
Terry, how do you think the threat is an empty one of retirement from Rodgers?
Hadn't thought of it like that, but call him on it. Call him on it. How do you become an MVP? It's like John Elway. I really applauded John Elway when he was MVP in the last Super Bowl he played in, and he retired. Now that's cool. Aaron Rodgers won 1 Super Bowl, but he's 3-time MVP. Empty threat. I can't answer. I guess I would say, I'm going to say no. I don't think it's an empty threat. I don't think I'm right, though. I'm confused. No, really. I'm a little confused. I never thought like that. And Mark, I never gave it a thought.
Yeah. Is
it an empty? Well, you know what? If he said, if you don't if you don't trade me, I'm retiring. So Jimmy Johnson once told me, anytime an athlete says, I'm thinking about retirement, he is already retired. So I would call him on it. I'd flat would call him on it. Mark, Maggie, I'd call him on it. But yeah, golly, I've never hem-hawed around about something so much in my life.
Well, Terry, how about this? If they do decide that they want to trade Aaron Rodgers, who do you think is going to be first in line, second in line, trying to do everything they can to pry Rodgers out of Green Bay?
I don't know. I thought 49ers, since he's from the Bay Area, would be good. They drafted their guy.
All right, I think we heard enough. What do you think?
Yeah, there's so many things that I could say. First off, I was trying to point out, and I said it at the same time that the audio started, and I misspoke. I said Bradshaw was a 4-time Super Bowl MVP. I meant Super Bowl champion. He was MVP twice in 13 and 14. But my point by saying that is that this guy has credibility. I mean, maybe some younger listeners, again, a shout out to Zimmerman, No, I'm not, I don't mean that disparagingly, but maybe they only have seen Terry on TV and don't know like how good of a quarterback he actually was. But the parallels here are pretty cool to point out as well, is that Terry was a sensitive quarterback, and for years, for like 20 years, Terry wouldn't even go back to Pittsburgh.
So I'm shocked that he's saying this about Rodgers, but please go ahead.
Whenever they would honor the Super Bowl team in the park, like, here's Joe Green, here's Franco Harris, Terry wouldn't go. And he was still salty toward Chuck Noll when Chuck Noll died. Now, I understand he felt that, and he didn't threaten to retire or demand a trade. That was a private conversation we know about now after he retired that he had with Al Davis, because he felt that he had won the job. He was only going into his 5th season. Then he's like, Chuck, if you don't believe in me, then fucking trade me. So kind of like Cutler when he was at Denver. So I get it. But I also do agree with him at the end of the soundbite with Aaron Rodgers. It's like, I wouldn't trade him. There's no way. I said that earlier, comparing it to Barry Sanders, when Detroit wouldn't trade him. And again, I the last thing, because I want to give you a chance to speak your mind on it. The larger point, again, it's so ironic. It's like Shakespearean ironic that Rodgers is so sore and threatening retirement now from a young draft pick when this is what happened to Favre when he was drafted. The irony coming full circle.
Yes.
That, again, Favre had whined a few times before that about, well, maybe my old arm ain't got it no more. I think I might retire and go back to Mississippi. But he said those kind of things going back to like 99, but still the Packers finally drafted a kid in 05 being Rodgers. And by 07, they lose an NFC Championship game like Green Bay this year and are ready to move on from this guy. Although Green Bay publicly has said they don't want to move on from him, but they were ready to at least have Favre compete with Rodgers. And Favre was, up in arms like, fuck that. I don't compete. I'm Brett Favre. So, but the fact that Rodgers is in the same spot now is so ironic, and I love it because I hate the Green Bay Packers. I hate their organization. I hate their fucking team. I hope that they lose for the next 25 years.
Well, here's my thinking on this. And I'm with you. I dislike the Packers, and their fans are so fucking entitled. The worst thing that could have ever happened in the National Football League was naming that goddamn trophy after Vince Lombardi. That's fucking bullshit. It's part of the reason why they feel so entitled. But getting back to Terry Bradshaw, I do think that he's wrong. I do think that Aaron Rodgers is entitled to be upset. And somebody put up here, and I'm trying to find it. Here it is. It's JKEE. I can't pronounce your name, but it's a cool name. The way the Bucs treated Brady really did a number on these star quarterbacks. And he's absolutely right. This is the chat tweet of the day. He is right. All of these quarterbacks, Russell Wilson saw Tom Brady leave the New England Patriots, and then immediately in his very first year goes to Tampa Bay and he wins a Super Bowl. And how did he do it? Because the coaching staff listened to what he wanted. Because they built the team around his skills. They gave him a big-time offensive line. They even drafted another offensive lineman in the early rounds, maybe the first round this year. They gave him the weapons that he needed. They altered the offense. The Bruce Arians throw the ball downfield, the Raiders style explosive offense that Arians likes to run. They altered that too, to Brady's comfort of getting rid of the ball quickly and matriculating the ball downfield, to use Hank Stram's verbiage. So all of these quarterbacks, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, guys who believe I'm as good as that motherfucking Tom Brady. I should be winning. I should have 6 rings. Why has he got all the rings? That they feel like, why isn't management listening to me? Why, when I go to management and say, hey, would you like my advice on something? They say, no, that's fine. Why didn't they call me and at least say, hey, we're drafting a quarterback this year. It has nothing to do with you. We still love you. You're still our guy. You're contracted here for the next 3 years, but this guy could fall to us, and we if he does, we're going to draft him as your heir apparent, just like we drafted you for Brett. They didn't have the courtesy to do that before the draft. They draft a defensive player in the first round this year, which is another fuck you to Aaron Rodgers when the team clearly needs a wide receiver opposite Devontae Adams. So I do think that in today's NFL, if you have a superstar quarterback, that the general manager of the team, at the very least, owes the courtesy of informing the quarterback on what they're doing, and maybe even consulting with the quarterback. And when I mean consulting, it's, what do you think we should do? Give me some input. What do you see on the field that is not working, and so forth? But apparently they've locked them out of all of those discussions. And to me, it's disrespectful. I don't like Aaron Rodgers.
I've got to interrupt. I've got to say something.
Please.
But think, okay, couple things. For one, they allowed him to get Mike McCarthy fired. I mean, that's debatable, but that was the consensus from even Packers beat writers.
No. Mike McCarthy was they would have won more Super Bowls if it wasn't because of Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy should have been fired years earlier, but please continue.
I'm saying he didn't like Mike McCarthy anymore. ESPN had those detailed articles where he was disrespecting him in front of the team in the huddle, constantly ridiculing him and creating like a chasm between himself and McCarthy with the team. You had to be one or the other. You're either in Coach McCarthy's group or you're my group. And they ultimately chose to be with Aaron Rodgers. Secondly, now he's trying to get the general manager fired. Like, dude, we already moved on from a coach for you. And thirdly, they gave him a 4-year contract worth $134 million with a signing bonus of $57 million, and almost $100 million of that was guaranteed. So I don't know how they're not I don't think they're disrespecting when they're paying him astronomically. You talk about generational players. You're giving this, no one in his family, if he liked them, would ever have to work again. But I mean, he's one of these guys that'll just take his money to the grave despite his family, it looks like. But so they've paid him well. They moved on from a coach that he didn't like. Now he's trying to get the GM fired. There's no doubting that he wants the GM gone, and basically said he would come back if the general. I mean, this guy, he's trying to be LeBron James. So if I'm on the Packers organization side on this one, I truly am.
4,000 Clover says that Dan is spitting out facts. Tony Solomansky says, fuck Rodgers. You can't get paid double of what Brady is and bitch about winning and getting your way. So that's just a sampling of what's going on in the chat room. Everybody's on your side. People want to beat the shit out of me right now. And so for that reason, we better change the subject.
No, I want to say one more thing. I've said this on the show before, but I absolutely believe this to be true. Mm-hmm. And it's just an opinion. There's no way to prove this, but it is my absolute truth that I think Aaron Rodgers is a Jay Cutler knee injury away from never going to a Super Bowl. Keep in mind, Cutler has to sit out basically the second half. And we go to Todd Collins and to Caleb Haney. The Bears still only lost 21-14 in that game, in the NFC Championship game. So in my opinion, if Jay Cutler does not hurt his knee in that game, then Aaron Rodgers is 0-5 in NFC Championship games. And before it was always, well, we're on the road. And then this last year they were at home and he still found a way to lose it.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy, I'll never take anything away from him. His single season 2020 was phenomenal. Like no one will ever have that disparity between touchdowns and interceptions, probably ever again. It's just absolutely incredible. I look at it, I drool at it, I masturbate to it, dreaming that can be Justin Fields putting up something like that, or before that Mitchell Trubisky, or before that Jay Cutler, anybody else. But having said that, this guy has lost in the clutch over and over and over and has gotten a pass for it, when even his statistics in these championship games, he's thrown more picks than touchdowns.
Well, we could look at, for instance, this last playoff game. The ball was taken away from Aaron Rodgers. There was a third down play call. Aaron got to call the play, and he says after the game that had I known that with a minute or 2 minutes left to go in the game.
Oh, the field goal, right? Yeah, he didn't know they were going to kick the field
goal. Had I
known
known that we were not going to try for it on fourth down, that we were going to kick the field goal and try to get the defense, had I known that, I would have called a different play. And he's right. He should have been told, call the play, you've got one down. He should have been told that. The second-year coach for the Packers fucked that up. Then there was the NFC Championship game against the Seahawks, where the Packers are leading by 3 scores.
Yeah, and they lost it with like 3 minutes to go.
They lost
one of the best things I've ever seen.
Oh, it was fucking beautiful. But it wasn't Aaron Rodgers' fault. It was Julius Peppers, because there was an interception by
that traitor. I hate Julius Peppers.
Me too. But there was an interception with about 6 minutes to go in the game, and Julius Peppers tells the interceptor, go down, as opposed to trying to get the ball upfield as much as possible and try to add another 3 points. He thought that the game was in hand. Go down. No. And then the onside kick, where the tight end is supposed to block for the tight end of the Packers is supposed to block. Instead, he goes up for the ball. It hits his fingertips. The ball is loose. Seattle recovers, and they go on to win the game. All of it was beautiful. Don't forget, but it wasn't Rodgers' fault. Let's be clear.
Don't forget, he was blown out and outplayed by Matt Ryan in Atlanta in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
They were blown out in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's had these opportunities. And, of course, because we're Bear fans, we had to fucking take it at Soldier Field. That's the one time he comes through. But, again, I still argue if Cutler doesn't get hurt, chances are that doesn't even happen, because that fat fuck, and I say that being 6'5", 300 pounds, so I can call somebody a fat fuck. Because that fat bastard that BJ Raji or whatever has that little pick 6 on Caleb Haney. He's not going to get that on Cutler.
No, he's not.
Yeah, and that's how we lost that game. If you remember, it was 14-all when he threw that pick.
Yeah, we got to figure out a way to show a game, or at least portions of the game, and then you and I do play-by-play. I would like to do that during this off season. Pick a game from your library, one that you have sent me. Dan has an extensive library of Chicago Bears games, a really fun game. And maybe, since the NFL would not be happy if we played the whole game on our YouTube channel, maybe we just play a handful of plays and you and I do play-by-play. You do the play-by-play, I do the analysis on some plays, and then we switch it up and just have some fucking fun. I would love to do that.
So you're not talking about in a professional way. You mean in a Bears fan meathead kind of way?
Oh yeah, look at that fucking taco. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, all right. I could be down for that.
That'd be fun. That'd be a hell of a lot of fun. All right, man. So much more to talk about this topic, and lots of great reaction in the chat room. We've got a record crowd in the chat room. I don't know why so many people are in the chat room listening to me. Oh, it's got to be you, Dan. It's got to be you, of course.
No, I told you this off air, and I mean no disrespect. I'm not placating you when I say this, and I'm not criticizing the other gentleman. I think Buffon does a great job. He has great energy. He certainly has pedigree. But I was listening to your podcast edition of the first round pick with Fields, which you did. You did like an intro to Bridget at the front and at the end, saying, "Hey, we did 4 hours, but this is just an audio portion."
Right.
And I think that you were missing from that. Like when I'm listening to this, I'm like, okay, it's not bad. It's informative. I'm a Bears fan. Of course I care. Of course I'm listening. But what is it missing? It's like if you had a great steak or something and you're like, this is good, but there's something not there. You know, I felt like you needed to be more involved in that. So maybe people are listening to hear you involved. So maybe it's you.
It's like my wife says. She says, you know what? There's like a couple of inches missing. Anyway, by the way, thank you very much for that kind comment. And then during that show, there were a number of people who were saying, Aldo, you need to get out. Look at Rock Davis. He's saying, Aldo, you're the man. I've received so many compliments this week for when I was on the air or when I was backstage on stuff. People were saying, they picked Justin Fields, although you've got to come on air and talk about it. And I was like, no, the show is designed for John to be the anchor and Neil and Danny. And I was glad that I was able to concentrate on pulling highlights and stuff like that. So truly appreciate, Dan, your kind words and all the kind words from people in the chat. Really, really appreciate it. Now, boy, we got so much to talk about. What should I pick up next? Oh man, should we talk about this now? Dan,
with the soundbite?
Yeah, well, the ESPN thing.
Yeah. Let's go.
All right. So, Dan listens, fair to say, religiously to the Cap and Hood show.
No.
Okay.
No. I haven't listened to any ESPN radio or Score until this week since the season ended.
Oh, okay.
But I just wanted to hear reaction, like, because it was Monday when I was listening to everyone's Friday morning reaction. I was cleaning house, you just sweeping, mopping, doing these monotonous things, so to spend the time, I was just listening to how everybody reacted the day after the first pick and just hear what they said. And this one call stood out to me, and I guess I'm just setting it up if you want to react afterwards.
Please. No, go ahead.
Let me talk about it now?
Yeah, set it up, and then I'll play the clip.
But give my opinion before or after?
After, I think. I think after would be better. Okay,
so the guy calls in, and he was I'm trying to be fair to the guy. And again, I don't even necessarily agree with him, but that's okay. But the guy was arguing that he wanted the Bears to draft Mac Jones and that he feels that to be a dominant quarterback in the league that you need to be a pocket passer.
That's how I understood what he said, yes.
Yeah, he cited like Tom Brady and then Joe Montana. And basically his argument was, every now and again you'll get like a Russell Wilson for a season, which isn't fair to Russell Wilson. He's had a better career than that, or Cam Newton for one season, but they're sort of aberrations. He feels that for sustained success, you need a pocket quarterback. And maybe I'm giving him too much credit because I don't know what's said about him could be true.
Right.
But I don't like the way I don't like the way it ended, but I think that we can go from there.
Okay, great setup, and I will let everyone in the chat room know. Please listen carefully to this 2-minute clip from ESPN's 1000's Cap and Hood show. David Kaplan, great friend of the bar room. He has been on multiple times. I say, hey, Cap, do you mind it? And I won't even get out the rest of the sentence. When do you need me? And he's a great friend. Jay Hood, unfortunately, hasn't responded to our request for interviews, but Hopefully he will someday. And maybe we will talk about this. This is an interaction that Cap and J Hood had with what's his name? Eddie from the North Side.
Hey, Eddie. What's up, man?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
How are you?
Hi, Eddie. Facts out there. Here's the facts that Justin Fields is a Mitch Trubisky. If you were going to draft a quarterback, which 98% of the quarterbacks in NFL history, 98% are pocket passers.
That's
period.
That's a fact, right, Eddie?
Yeah,
that's a fact.
What research have you done to come to that conclusion?
A fact.
Let's see, Brady. We got 6.
That's 1.
Roethlisberger.
That's 2.
Joe Montana. I could go through them all. When that guy dropped to New England, Mac Jones, and his report said he's a quick thinker in the pocket and makes decisions quick, I'm like, that's the quarterback that the Bears should have drafted right off the bat.
So let me hold on, Eddie. I can't. My head's going to explode. So you just had a reporter from the NFL Network said she talked to 16 teams after the draft. Give me your honest grades at quarterback. Half of them had Justin Fields ahead of Trevor Lawrence as the number 1 quarterback. That means that if she talked to 16, let's do the math here, that means 8 of them said they had him number 1. 8 of 32 means a quarter of the league at minimum thinks he's the best quarterback in the draft. And I'm supposed to listen to Eddie on the North Side who thinks Mac Jones should have been a pick? You're out of your mind.
They said the same thing about Mitch Trubisky.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't.
Yes,
They did not, Eddie.
Listen to it. They did so.
They did not. They did not. They called him the ultimate project, as raw as they come. This guy, Hoodie, you saw him at Georgia and Ohio State. Is he raw?
No, he's not raw. He's ready.
Come on, Eddie. You're better than that.
But see, here's the thing, Eddie. We appreciate the phone call. Eddie, since we've been doing the show, I've been reading your mail for a while. I know where Eddie's coming from. Eddie didn't like Deshaun Watson, doesn't like Russell Wilson, doesn't like Justin Fields. I know where he's coming from. But he likes Mac Jones. Like, he's seen all the games of Mac Jones. I saw Mac Jones at Alabama. I'm an SEC guy. I saw Mac Jones. Mac Jones is a project. But he's going to be coached well because Belichick is there. I know where Eddie's coming from. I already know because of all the quarterbacks he doesn't like, but he does like Mac Jones. Probably hasn't seen one game of Mac Jones, but yet likes him based on a report.
Correct.
So Eddie, when Eddie talks about quarterbacks, I know where he's coming from. I already know. He likes a specific type of quarterback for his team. I get it.
Statue in the pocket he wants.
White.
Thank you.
All right. Before you comment, Dan, I just want to say that in the chat room, because I know you don't have access to the chat, a lot of people are busting Eddie's balls big time. So please go ahead with what bothered you most about that interaction.
Now, first off, again, they assumed, and again, it's an assumption at best, that this guy had never seen Mac Jones's games. That's what Jay Hood says at the end. He's probably never even watched him play. He just read an article. You don't know that. You can't say that. And then to paint him as a racist, maybe the guy is a racist. Maybe that's it. Maybe he just wants white quarterbacks. Well, you could have said that and allowed him to retort. I think it's cowardly to paint him with that and then cut the call. That's what I didn't like about Bill O'Reilly for so many years on Fox News, when he would shout somebody down, not allow them to speak, and cut their mic and then just move on. That's Tucker Carlson kind of shit. But in this regard, it's coming from the other side. So I'm not trying to be political. I'm just illustrating the point with people that happen to be doing political shows. And I think that if you're going to call this guy a racist, which is it's completely what he's saying. There's no like, oh, I was telling a joke. No, he said that guy was a racist. And I'm not being sensitive to it. I don't know this guy. And maybe this guy is a bigot for all I know. I have no idea. But if you're going to say that about the guy, give him a chance to fucking respond. Again, you don't know that he hasn't watched Mac Jones's college. Like a Tooch. Tooch is a big Mac Jones guy and wanted the Bears. I don't know what he thought the night of the draft when we drafted Fields, but I know for weeks and months he was like, I wish that the Bears could get Mac Jones. So are we going to say, well, he only liked Mac Jones because he's white. Of course not. So I don't think it's fair to this guy who was saying a lot of stuff that I disagreed with, like saying that 98%, like you can't, where did you get that figure from? And then for him to say that the media loved the Trubisky pick, that's not true either. The guy was booed as soon as he was drafted when he went to a fucking Bulls game. And, a lot of people had to come on board and hope that he was the right pick. So he's saying a lot of things that I feel are false, but you can't call him a fucking racist and not defend himself. That's my opinion.
You're saying, again, to be clear, you should not call him a racist after you have dumped him and you should say, I know you feel that way because you're from the interaction that we have, you tend to favor white quarterbacks over black, and then let the guy defend himself. That's what you're saying, right?
Right. Imagine, because you used to call into Cap and Haw a lot, right?
Correct.
Because I used to watch that show on, was it Comcast Chicago? I think it was brought. I watched that a lot. I didn't even know who you were, but you were Aldo. What was your name? You didn't say Aldo Gandia. Aldo
I think I said
the barkeeper.
Yeah, Aldo barkeeper. I think I said yeah.
Yeah. So imagine just because I could see Haw being smug like that, and I say that maybe bitterly because he blocked me. But what if like I don't know? Let's just flip the tables. And what if Haw was like, well, this guy's clearly not white, so that's the reason that he does not want Mac Jones, and cut you. Mm-hmm. You'd be like, what the fuck? That's not my opposite. Like I feel like that guy. They it's not right what they did. Like to drop him and make those assumptions. And I'm not trying to be on a soapbox. I just thought that was deeply appalling and cowardly because everything that Jay Hood said there at the end could be right. Mm-hmm. But I let the guy defend himself if you're going to put him on blast like that on radio, whether it's, FM or AM, I guess technically it's AM, but still I can hear it in West Virginia. Mm-hmm. So it's not like it's just limited to like 30 people. So this guy, there's probably a lot of people that actually know him that think, they called him a racist on air and he didn't have anything to say. He didn't even have a comeback. He must be a bigot. It's not fair to that guy.
So let me read for you some of the comments that are coming in the chat, and this will also be good for people listening on the audio-only version of this show. Mike Diaz says, "Though straight racist." Aaron Current of the Barfly Tailgate Show says, "This guy is an idiot," and I'm pretty sure that he was referring to Eddie because that he posted that when Eddie was talking. One who needs Christ says the guy is a racist. King Pookie Alvarez says Eddie loves Andy Dalton. Michael Diaz, moving on. Mule Skinner says Mac Jones is a good prospect like the rest. Time will tell what happens to them all. King Pookie Nation, nobody wanted Mac Jones. Kent Caper says racist. Swanky says I like Justin Fields' pocket presence and ability to read and manipulate defenses. 4,000 Clover says this guy is just ignorant. I'm going to scroll down. Mule Skinner says I agree with Dan. Aaron says I agree, Sully. You can't jump to calling him a racist. Somebody earlier said you shouldn't do that. Zimmerman says, I don't think anyone called him a racist. May have implied that.
But no, he did. He did. He said that he doesn't like white he only likes white quarterbacks. So to deduce that is not saying that he's a racist.
Did Jay Hood say that those exact words? He doesn't like white quarterbacks?
No. He said he likes white quarterbacks. Okay. He says, yeah, play. It's in the last 30 seconds of it. If you can play the last.
No, that's fine. That's fine. We don't need to go back. I trust you. But there is clearly more of an implication than there is.
Well, I agree that the guy's comments, I agree with the people that were calling him an idiot and all those things. But there's two different arguments then. You can say that the guy's opinions are not founded in reality and that, he's full of shit and doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay, call him ignorant then. That's fine. But to take the leap to call him a racist because he's ignorant on his football opinion is a pretty big leap. And for you to just, the fact that he wasn't allowed to defend himself is the part that I take umbrage with. Because like I said, I hated when Bill O'Reilly would do that to people and just shout them down, cut their mics, and they weren't allowed to express anything that he disagreed with. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Jay Hood and Cap, and I love David Kaplan. Again, I do. But I think that they disagreed with this guy. So we don't agree with him. So, well, he must be a fucking racist then. He must want Mac Jones only because he's a white quarterback. Man, that's not fair that's a huge leap to go to that, in my opinion.
M. Desai says, didn't they say that this guy emails them often and maybe there was something in the emails that hinted more at racism? But again, Desai, Dan's point is if you're going to publicly over the airwaves make that kind of really, pretty obvious implication this guy is a racist, you should say it and let the guy defend himself. There's one other one here I wanted to read. J.K. Idol says it also sounded like he didn't want Mitch, who was the white quarterback in that draft also. So that is a good point by J.K. Idol that Eddie says, Eddie makes it pretty clear that he didn't want Mitchell Trubisky, and Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes were the two other top quarterbacks in that draft.
And both of them happen to either be biracial or black.
Right.
That's a great point. And yes, and he was just saying he thought that the Fields pick was akin to the Trubisky pick, which God, please don't let it be. But I don't think that is fair to say, well, you must only be saying that because Mac Jones is white. I think that's crazy. That's a discourse problem in our country right now, a symptom of everything that's going on, whether it's left versus right or Democrat versus Republican, whatever, where you don't listen to the other side. You just fucking smack them with a brush, whether that's you're racist, you're a bigot, you're a liberal pussy. Who's the guy that's always telling us we're libtards?
I think it's Tony Solomonsky.
Yeah, my man. That's what I'm saying. There's always like this where you denigrate the other person that you don't like. So I mean, I think that's where we are as a culture now.
I totally agree with you. In these times where the racial climate in the United States is so precarious, it's so sensitive, that you should have a little bit more a responsible approach to bringing up racism and to make implications or to call out people who are racist. That should not be so easily handed out. But by the way, we have Eddie from the North Side on the phone. Eddie, you've been listening to what was been said here. Do you think that Cap and Jay Hood were saying that you were a racist? There are a lot of people who say no.
They did so.
Wait a minute, Eddie, what are you talking about? They didn't really say out loud that you were racist.
They did so.
Eddie, that's not fair. You're not being fair to the people at ESPN. I don't think anybody said that about you.
They did so.
All right, I think I played that bit enough. But that's probably tell the folks over at 100 Proof or the former guys over at 100 Proof that they need to use that bite, because I know that sound drop that is classic. That sounds so Chicago too, right? Sounds like Southside Chicago or something like that. All right, my friend. Let me see if anybody else in the chat said something that we want to comment on before we do. Let's see. King Pookie Nation Alvarez, how did you hear the Bears might move from that's the big news. Dan sends me news that the Chicago Bears are thinking of moving into my hometown, the suburb north of Chicago, Arlington Heights. And I welcome that. I totally welcome that. I love Soldier Field. I love watching a game at Soldier Field. I love the history of Soldier Field, but watching a game in Soldier Field is so difficult to get in and out of. You only have 3 exit points because you got the lake on one side. And when everybody is channeled into when the game is over, you got 60,000 people all being bottlenecked into an exit, and it's the worst thing you can ever go through. People, when you see the stadium and there's minutes to go in the game, and whether the Bears are ahead or Bears are behind, it's almost I never leave early, but it's you can't almost blame people because getting out of there is such a fucking pain in the ass. I would love for the Bears to stay at Soldier Field, and maybe the Bears are doing a negotiating tactic. Fix the way these fans can get in and out of the stadium. Fix the Wi-Fi at the stadium, because the stadium is under the control of the Chicago Park District. There's so many fucking things that are wrong with what they are offering Bears fans that it has to be fixed. And so if it doesn't happen, maybe a new state-of-the-art stadium that holds 80,000 people, has a retractable roof in Arlington Heights, maybe that's the way to go. What do you think, Dan?
Well, obviously I don't live there, so my take is not going to be as passionate about experiences such as yours, like, well, the parking and the Wi-Fi. But I remember 25, 30 years ago, the Bears were talking about going to Gary, Indiana at the time. And you just thought, I mean, you got to stay in Chicago, right? I mean, that's one of the things Mike North always said. You know, we've got the Bears, we've got the Blackhawks, we got the Cubs, we got the White Sox, we got the Bulls, and they're all in Chicago. They're not in New Jersey like the Giants and the Jets. You know, they're all in the fucking city. You know, and there was a sense of pride with that. You know, but in the same regard, it's a shame that an epic town like Chicago can't host the Final Four. Can't host the Super Bowl because your stadium doesn't have, it's not as good as the one in Minnesota. It's not as good as the one in Detroit. You know what I mean? You're Chicago. Like the Bears should have a better stadium. Now, as far as I understand it, they've got 10 more years committed to the Soldier Field that was open in 2003, the current version.
Correct.
So you'd hate for them to have to go play a year at Illinois again if they're going to start from scratch again and tear this down. But I mean, San Francisco doesn't play in San Francisco anymore. They're in Santa Clara. So maybe it's not that big a deal because Arlington Heights is 30 miles away roughly?
It's less than that, but about 20, 25.
Yeah. So I guess it's not, you could still call them Chicago with a straight face, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's not one of those deals like where New Jersey is the home of the Jets and the Giants, and you're not even in the same fucking state. Yeah, so you'd like to think that they could work it out somehow, but if you're Chicago, you deserve a better stadium.
Totally agree. From an economic standpoint, having an indoor stadium, one with a retractable roof, would be the best way. But having an indoor stadium would be such a boom to the economy of Chicago. You can host, there's conferences like the Southern Baptist League. This goes all the way back to the time where I worked at Channel 2, and there was this organization called the McPeer Exposition, something around. They were making recommendations for building a domed stadium that would hold about 100,000 people. And as part of their recommendations, they said there are conferences that need a venue that can hold 70 to 100,000 people, like the Southern Baptist Association of whatever. Those people are going to Indianapolis for their convention because that's the only venue in the Midwest that holds it at now Miller Field in, I don't think it's called Miller Field anymore. They changed the name, but now that place is available. So Chicago, from an economic standpoint, from a boom, really needs a retractable stadium, indoor stadium that can bring in all this convention business.
You definitely want it to be retractable because that's part of the mystique of the Bears. You don't want to go like the Vikings.
Totally agree.
Have all those classic games in the snow and the cold, and then suddenly you're a dome team. You don't want to do that. Plus, all the times we've been beaten saying, "Oh, bear weather," and poking our chest out about the cold, and the other team just embarrasses us in Chicago. But still, in theory, you'd like to think you could still. Hey, it's 10 degrees outside. Fuck it. Open the roof anyway. You don't have to play in the dome, but the dome could be utilized in a championship game or like Final Four or something like that. So it's not like you're becoming and marrying yourself to be a dome team.
Right.
You could still say, fuck it, we're playing in the cold anyway.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, if they have a dome type stadium, it has to be retractable and that roof has to be open for even the cold weather games. Now, I'm not saying if it's dangerously cold that you don't close it, then you should close it. But if it's snowing and it's 35 degrees, 20 degrees, 10 degrees, keep the roof open and let's play football. I have gone to a few games where I thought to myself, why the fuck am I out here? I love the Bears, but I think I'm going to die. I'm looking at take off the gloves. I go to the washroom, by the heater over there, and my hands are blue. And I'm like, this is stupid, man. But
can you think of a game specifically that comes to your mind where you're like, oh my God, it was just the worst. It was so fucking cold.
Yeah. I don't remember the year, but it was the game against the then St. Louis Cardinals, last regular season game. The Bears needed to win to get
I sent you that game. It's in 79.
Yes, 1979. Thank you. That game.
Yeah, because Hallis's boy had just died.
That's right. I had a fucking great time. My buddy brings a television set that worked intermittently because of the cold, would freeze up the battery and stuff, but he'd go charge it and come back and stuff. So we had like end zone seats, not end zone where you're looking at the field from a perpendicular way, but we were in the end zone. And so we were relying on the TV for the most part to get good looks, particularly if the ball is way on the other side. And so I'm announcing the game. There's Peyton. He's in a 10. He's in a 5. Touchdown. And there's a bunch of white kids behind me, and they're like hitting me over the head. Yeah. That was a time of my life. But my fucking toes almost fell off. I mean, they literally almost fell off. And there was another game, and this was well before any work was done on a team. And I'd have to kind of do some searching around to see what game. But I was way up in the nosebleeds on a game. And I snuck in a bottle of whiskey, to keep me warm. That did nothing, man. The entire second half, I was in the washroom trying to warm up because I was so fucking cold. And part of it too is that I didn't dress well enough, but it just was dangerously cold, man.
I just wanted to comment real quickly on that 79 game. In case people don't know, again, I'm going to single out Zimmerman. I don't mean to, but but I mean, he just, he was born in the 90s. So I just want to mention this to younger fans. The most incredible thing about that, if you think about this, two things had to happen for the Bears to make the playoffs. First off, they had to beat the Cardinals at home by at least 30 points. Because of tiebreaker scenarios, they had to score that day. Mm-hmm. So they had to score and win by at least 30. Now, on top of that, they had to have Washington lose to Dallas. So the Bears they've won by 30 or whatever the fuck. They've done their part. But you flip over in Texas at Texas Stadium, and Washington is leading Dallas by 13 with like 2 minutes to go. And Dallas scores 2 touchdowns in under 2 minutes, and that put the Bears in the playoffs.
That is so fucking cool. Now, Dan tells me that he is making plans to come to Chicago sometime.
Well, let me comment on this first.
Okay, please.
On that, I don't know, because my plan was to drive for one. Mm-hmm. Even though it's a 12-hour drive. Right. But I was talking to Hertz and Enterprise today. Okay. As a result, at least maybe this isn't everybody, but at least locally, the Enterprise specifically was telling me that like the one by my house, she said, look, man, before the pandemic, we had 200 cars or more on the lot at any given time. She's like, you know how many we have today? She goes, we have 2. I'm not exaggerating. We have 2. She said that they've upped the fees, like you had to pay, so much down if you took the car. It was like $100, and they returned it after you returned the car. Mm-hmm. Well, that's $300 now. Mm-hmm. And for just a compact car, the rate used to be like $19.99 a day. That's before you add the insurance. Right now, they're charging $109.99 a day. And I looked at Hertz. Hertz is charging $129.99 a day for just a compact car. So fuck that. I'm not going to spend $500-$600 for a rental car. And also I have 3 payments left on my Jeep. So there is no way that I'm going to take my Jeep 12 hours one way and one way back, because I need this motherfucker to last. I need a couple of years without a payment. I owe like basically $700 left on my vehicle.
Nice.
And that, when that's paid off, I need this to last a couple of years without a payment. So I don't know, man. Like I just don't know. And flying is not that I'm afraid to fly. Fuck, my dad was a paratrooper in Vietnam. So, but so I guess you'd like to think I could at least take a commercial flight.
Yeah.
But
why can't you?
Well, even that, like round trip, even booking now, like even with Priceline or something. And I can't.
You're staying at my place, so you got no hotel. I'm going to feed you every day. When Draft Dr. Phil came to Chicago, I think Jim Larison paid for his airline ticket, and then I paid for his meals. I paid for the hotel that we stayed at, and so forth. You're going to stay here with me. I'm going to feed you. So the only thing you got to pay.
I appreciate. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate that. I'm just saying. But right now, the thing I worry about is that to get tickets, everyone's going to be fired up as fuck because you couldn't go last year, and Soldier Field's capacity is the smallest in the league, as you know.
I'll get tickets. Trust me.
So I would assume I'd probably have to spend to get a decent ticket. I'm probably going to have to spend.
I got the tickets. I'll take care of the tickets too. Get your ass over here. That's all I'm asking.
Let me finish my thought at least. I figure the ticket's going to roughly be $300, and then a flight back and forth round trip. And I couldn't even, I'd have to connect and all this shit. It would be like $400 minimum. So I'm looking at basically $1,000 to go see a game. And every time I've ever been to a Bears game, the Bears have lost. Every time.
That doesn't mean shit. Listen,
it goes beyond. It goes for a loss.
It goes beyond watching the game. You're going to stay here. We're going to watch games together. We're going to watch movies. I'm going to take you around to see the city. I'll take you to a whorehouse. I'll take you to wherever you want to go. I'm going to take care of you. We're going to have the time of our lives. All you got to do is get here. Super Mario at 800 says, then fucking hitchhike, dude.
Hitchhike? What is it, 1970?
Whatever you got to do, you got to get your ass over here. We're going to talk about it offline, but we're going to make it a product. If I have to open up a GoFundMe, to pay for it.
I would be ashamed of that. I can't do that.
No, I know you wouldn't, but we'll figure it out. We will figure it out. And then Stephen Me says that you and I can cuddle together after the game.
Well, that's my favorite part.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. All right. We are about 2 hours in. I want to talk about the movie now. I mean, we're going to talk about a few movies, right? But the main topic for tonight is a 1972 movie that stars Raquel Welch. And for those of you young bloods out there, I think Zimmerman is still on there. Yeah, Zim is still there. Raquel Welch was a sex symbol of the late 60s and early 70s. She starred in a movie called 1 Million Years BC, which she had 4 lines in, which I think was 4 more than anybody else in the cast. It was about it was a special effects prehistoric movie and so forth. And she wore this doe-skinned bikini outfit, and she became a worldwide sex symbol. Just incredible. As an actor, she was okay, not the best. She was okay. And she was trying to find a project that would allow her to show that she had bigger range as a movie performer, as an actor. And so she found the script called Kansas City Bomber, which is about a woman in the roller derby world. I mentioned it a couple of shows ago, 3 shows ago, and Dan says, I'm going to find a DVD. I'm going to send it to you. And so he did. Thank you very much, Dan. And we both watched it over the weekend. And so we'd like to share our thoughts about the movie. Dan, why don't you begin?
Well, the thing, I didn't like it as much as you did, but I didn't dislike it. Everything you said about her appearance is 100% accurate. She was incredibly beautiful, stunningly beautiful. Even amongst the most beautiful women of her time, if you put them together, she's probably going to be most people's pick as the prettiest. You know, I mean, I can't, I oversell it enough. But the movie, first off, the stunts, whoever's doing their stunts deserves a lot of credit.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't think that she was doing all this shit. I mean, I don't think Raquel Welch was taking all those blows, you know what I mean? And the lady that she has the feud with, and it was actually a woman that Nicholson was fucking back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
She appeared in 5 Easy Pieces and Easy Rider with Jack Nicholson.
They did so.
Anyway, my opposition to it is the main thing that I didn't like was that she has this like love story that had no substance whatsoever with the owner of this roller derby team.
Mm-hmm.
Like they go out to dinner like one time, and then they're saying shit like, well, I don't know if I love you, but it's as close to you could be without loving you. And this dude's doing all this duplicitous shit behind her back, like trading her roommate, trading the guy that she defends, and making her look like an asshole to the team, to where the team thinks she's fucking him just to like, cause she wants to be like Aaron Rodgers, who's dictating who's on the team. And like, she wants to be the face of the team, when in actuality, she's not doing that at all. So in reality, she would be like, what are you doing this to me for? You're making me look like the villain here when I'm not trying to be.
Right.
Like, and not to mention this dude's like 35 years older than her. I get it that, you know, Hugh Hefner's fucking 18-year-olds when he's 90. Okay. But still, at best, she's like this guy's sugar baby and could have anybody she wants because she's so hot. And the fact that he's an asshole doing this stuff behind her back, why would she still want him? She wouldn't. So the fact that they're still like trying to sell this like love story after one date. I mean, one date. I mean, come on. Who's falling in love after one date? That's a grown ass man or a grown woman for that matter.
By the way, Zim in the chat room correctly says that she was one of the women on the posters in the Shawshank Redemption, she being, of course, Raquel Welch. And Zach Sullivan says, you're absolutely right, Zim. Fuzzy britches is what the warden referred to her as. It's a great recall there, Zach. I agree with you that plot element was weak, and the entire film has plot elements that don't quite add up. But one of the reasons that I like the movie, and it's almost not fair to a lot of people who watch some of these older movies and are expected to appreciate them without knowing the full context of what is going on during that era. In 1972, it was a time where women in motion pictures usually played sex objects, where they were not appreciated for being strong characters. Kansas City Bomber was one of those rare films where you showed a woman who was an athlete, a woman who could kick ass, a woman who went through ordeals and had to overcome them, a woman who had 2 children, one of them played by Jodie Foster, by the way, and chose to leave the kids with her mom so that she could go out and try to find fortune in the roller derby world. There's all sorts of kind of sociological things associated with this picture that I think make it a deeper film than I think most critics appreciated at the time. The film was blasted by critics. And I did a little research, to see what some of the critics were saying about it. And they were complaining about a lot of things that I think were just totally unfair. But there are some things that they were right. And just like you're right in your assessment, in my opinion, you're right in your assessment of some of the plot holes and stuff. And one other thing that is important to consider is MGM, the studio that did this picture, They were run by a guy, and I'm forgetting his name, Aubrey. His last name was Aubrey, but he became famous for running CBS TV during that era of the Beverly Hillbillies, the Green Acres, and Gilligan's Island, and so forth. He was one of those TV executives that Newton Minow complained about when he said television is a vast wasteland. There's nothing but garbage on. But he made CBS a ton of fucking money with these simple-minded, stupid shows that were entertaining, but they didn't do anything to edify the United States. Well, he went on to MGM, and he was fucking tinkering with everybody's movie. If you go back and see a lot of the MGM movies from that era, they're directed by a guy named Alan Smithee. And there is no Alan Smithee. That was the name that the Directors Guild would give to the director who said, take my fucking name off the credits because I don't want to be associated with it. This guy, Aubrey, has re-edited the movie to the point where it doesn't make any sense. He's taking shit out and blah, blah, blah. And so that's what was going on. And so I suspect that perhaps some of the issues with that movie had to do with Aubrey's interference with editing certain scenes out. For instance, scenes between the owner of the team and Raquel Welch. One other thing, and I apologize for pontificating on this. One of the other things that I found interesting is I read one critic's review who this guy liked the movie a lot. And he said, if this movie was directed by some European, French talking guy, critics would have said this is a great morality about how women are treated and blah, 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 and blah, blah. But the fact that it was done by MGM and it was treated like a B movie, a trash movie, it's been forgotten about and so forth. And I think that guy makes a really good point. There are a lot of movies out there that if you affix, Martin Scorsese's name to it or some other famous filmmaker, European filmmaker, or whatever, people will look at it differently than if it's directed by Aldo Gandia. So for what it's worth, I think the movie is worth watching. Dan, do you think it's worth watching for anybody who might be interested in what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean it's only an hour and 45 minutes, so it's not like you're sitting through Spartacus or something. Like, fuck, I gotta shave after this film's over,
4,000 Clovers has he says, okay, so would you take Ginger over Marianne or Marianne over Ginger?
I like Marianne better.
Sure. Absolutely. Ginger was hot, but man, oh man. Now, and this is a great question from Zimmerman. Okay, but is it better than Rollerball? Why is that a great question? Because Rollerball stole so many of the things from Kansas City Bomber, including the opening tracking shot where they show Raquel Welch getting into the arena. The opening shot from Rollerball is essentially the same thing. And the movie Slapshot was done after Kansas City Bomber, and it also borrowed a lot of things from Kansas City Bomber. Kansas City Bomber was kind of that first sports movie that other directors said, you know what, this is pretty good, I'm going to use it in my movie and so forth. And I think that's another reason to watch the film if you like that kind of stuff, like movie nerds like me like.
I've got I want to comment on one more thing about the film, but I have a fun fact for you since you brought this Gilligan's Island was brought up. The guy that played Gilligan, Bob Denver, lived in my town where I live for like the last 20 years of his life. He started a radio station here. That's what he did at the end of his life. His name's Bob Denver. Yeah, right.
He was a damn good actor, and I think that the Gilligan thing and his TV work he was on another show called the something about Dobie Gillis. He played a kind of a beatnik character, a black and white TV show before Gilligan's Island. I thought he was a good actor who probably, if he would have stuck to motion pictures as opposed to TV, although he needed to eat like everybody else, would have had a career, worth more acclaim than being Gilligan. But I thought his comedic performance on Gilligan, I thought it was excellent.
Yeah, his house was 10 minutes from me.
Is that right?
He had a reputation of being sort of smug and not really well liked in public or anything, but I guess, he just didn't want to be fucked with. But his radio station was called Little Buddy Radio because, the skipper was always calling him Little Buddy. But anyway, going back to Kansas
Alan
City.
Hale, by the way, played the skipper, who was the son of Alan Hale Jr. played the skipper, who was the son of a famous actor in the 40s and 50s named Alan Hale. But of course, nobody cares about that. Please go back to your original point.
I was going to say that all jokes aside with Kansas City Bomber, I couldn't understand the rules, like trying to understand like how the girls were scoring on the you got to go 5 laps and do this and do that and you get 50 points. It was like for me, I was like watching hockey. Like I can't understand the rules to hockey either. I had no idea what the fuck was going on. No clue.
See, I don't get that because the rules are spelled out in the opening scene. In that opening scene where we see Raquel Welch get into the arena, they play the national anthem over the credits and so forth, and then the match starts, and the play-by-play announcer, who was a veteran of roller derby play-by-play announcing, he spells out all the rules right at the top. But here's another thing. It doesn't fucking matter because it's not really, the movie really isn't about roller derby. You know what a MacGuffin is, Dan?
A MacGuffin?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. A MacGuffin is something in the movie. Alfred Hitchcock made the word famous for people who love movies and movie makers and so forth. The MacGuffin is something in the movie that everybody is after. It could be the gold. It could be the briefcase in Pulp Fiction. It could be whatever it is. People are after it. And Alfred Hitchcock and Quentin Tarantino would always say, it doesn't fucking matter what's inside the briefcase. The MacGuffin doesn't matter. Most movies, you don't remember what the MacGuffin is. You just remember the actions that people do in order to get the MacGuffin. And
I wasn't trying to criticize the film based upon my lack of understanding of the rules. I was just pointing out, literally, I didn't understand. I heard the same breakdown from the play-by-play announcer, and I still didn't understand what the fuck they were doing, like how they were scoring. I just didn't understand. Sorry, I tried.
No, please don't apologize.
But I wanted to have.
By the way, very quickly, Stephen Mee says, didn't MacGuffin play quarterback for the Bears in '82?
Probably, but I wanted to 84 when everybody was playing Rusty Litch.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So yeah, I was just trying to understand everything that was happening, and again, that's not a part of my understanding or my criticism of the film.
Right.
But I'm just acknowledging, like, I didn't understand how they scored, because it was more like professional wrestling than anything else.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to hit you at the fucking table and shit like that.
Yeah, they use the same formula. And when I was a kid watching roller derby, it was on every Saturday afternoon. And I'm a kid. I'm always looking for sports and stuff. There's golf on Channel 2. There's roller derby on Channel 26. I'm going to go with the roller derby because there's some chicks beating the shit out of each other on there. So, and yeah, I don't remember what the rules were like, but it was just fun watching people go around in circles and beat the shit out of each other. It's pretty cool. All right. What else have you seen? But before we do that, before we talk about what else have you seen and share, watch or don't watch, I want to run some commercials so that I can run and take a piss. This is a minute and a half, Dan. So if you can be back in a minute and a half, that would be great.
Let's hope you don't have to take an impromptu shit.
No, it's penis only that's coming out.
All right.
All right.
Guys, it's Peggy Kaczynski. I retired early from my 20-something career as a sportscaster, covering the Bulls, the Bears, the Blackhawks, the Cubs, the White Sox, and really every other college and high school team in Chicago. So what do you do after that? Well, you start a podcast. That's what I did with my teenage son, Jason. And the result is the sportscaster and her son. Yes, I'm the baby boomer, a mom. We don't get along. We don't have a lot in common, but we both share a love for sports. And we always have great sports conversation. Even better, our guests in the interviews. So come check us out. We're on Podbean and the Barroom Network, or really wherever you get your audio. The Sportscaster and Her Son podcast. See you there.
Make sure you join Danny Shimon and Neil Stopchinski for their final evaluation of all the Chicago Bears draft picks and undrafted free agents. All right, we are back. Dan, did you use the washroom?
I did not. We need to get Mark Giangreco on here. He's another guy that's been canceled.
Yeah, how about that?
Get Giangreco on the show.
Yeah, I think I have his phone number. I'm not sure it's I should use it to call him because it was given to me by somebody else. Oh, it was a little weird, you know. I got all these great phone numbers that Schuster and Shanowski and other people have given me, but should I call these people? Maybe. We'll see. All right. So what else have you seen? I want to talk about the Mare of Easttown, the HBO show that I think is now 4 episodes in.
3 have aired.
3. Did you see number 3?
Yes.
Wow. Am I right in saying wow?
Are we giving spoilers or no?
Okay, let me I think we should give spoilers away. So we are 2 hours and 10 minutes into the show. Listen, folks, if you are not interested in our take on the HBO's Mare of Easttown, or if you don't want anything spoiled, then go away. Let's fast forward, listen to the rest of the show on demand. We're going to talk about Mare of Easttown for the next 10, 15 minutes. All right, Dan, go for it.
Well, the week before we left with a cliffhanger, an incredible one. In case you don't know about it, essentially this young girl was killed who I believe was 17.
Correct.
And you think that it could be her baby daddy or his redneck girlfriend who actually beats her up physically. Mm-hmm. And it's a kind of like a Twin Peaks, like who did what, right. who killed Laura Palmer kind of thing. But the dad, her father, is convinced that it is the baby daddy. So the end of the second episode, he shoots the motherfucker in the back, no less. And you think, wow, like, did he die? We kind of don't know for a week. And as it came back this week, like the kid is battling paralysis, but he lived. Mm-hmm. And the dad turned himself in and it completely admitted to, hey, he thought he killed him. He admitted to it at the very least attempted murder. And they didn't really go off any farther into that. But do you want me to keep going? I mean,
let me backtrack a little bit, because one of the really cool things about Mare of Easttown, besides the performance by Kate Winslet, who I think I've never been a huge Kate Winslet fan, the woman who I first saw on the Titanic. She's okay. And I've probably seen her in a couple of other movies since then. Okay. In this TV show, she is spectacular. A cantankerous woman who's had some issues, is divorced, and she doesn't have a good relationship with her mom, and everything is going wrong for this poor character.
She lost a son.
She lost her son who committed suicide, and a bunch of people are saying, probably committed suicide. In fact, in one scene said, "I know why your son committed suicide, because you're a fucking bitch." Well, she does act a bit bitchy at times, and so it's a really great role, and she does a great job in it. And her face just shows, not wearing makeup, and so the lines of all this fatigue about life and the battles of life. And she's got a couple of little layers on the side, kind of, an average person. She's decided to just throw away all that shit about being a movie star and really, really act out as Mare, and I think it's a spectacular thing. Now, but what I wanted to say is there's just so many levels. Every character has a backstory. There's something going on with that character and that character and that character. And so, I mean, we could spend an hour just kind of plotting out, what's going on with everything from a character development standpoint. And that's one of the reasons why I really like this show, is because it is character driven. And if you're an actor and you had any role in this show, you would be really happy to have it because the characters are very well developed. You can go ahead, Dan, and pick up.
I really like Evan Peters as well. He came to fame with American Horror Story, and he did the first 8 seasons of American Horror Story and was not in season 9 because he was filming this. He is back in season 10. That's an anthology series on FX. If you haven't watched it, Aldo, it's good shit. But yeah, he plays her partner, and I think they have a good chemistry, and I could see them fucking at one point potentially. So I like that he entered the show. The one thing I don't like, and I'm skipping to the end of the episode, and again, I'm not even religious, but I think it's kind of low-hanging fruit to have another show just attack a priest.
Yes.
How many programs or how many movies have we had where we exposed the Catholic as a pedophile or whatever? It's just
yeah, I'm hoping it doesn't go there, but the priest in this show appears to be a very strong suspect in the murders.
Yeah, he dumped her bike.
Mm-hmm.
He dumped the bike, so it implies it almost way more stronger than even Jay Hood with the racist guy. It implies that the priest is the killer. And I don't like that. I didn't want that. Like I said, it's just low hanging fruit to say.
Well, I mean, we don't know yet. It could be that the priest is doing something to help the actual killer because it was, an accidental killing or something. We don't know for sure.
I hope you're right in that regard. Yeah. I do hope.
I mean, one of the cool things about this show is that they are planting a lot of suspects. It's like, it could be this person, it could be that person. But right now, the priest is leading the field as the potential suspect. But at one point, it was the father of the child who was shot and is now paralyzed. But the show works, man. It works. It is 3 episodes in. I think it's a 6 or 7 parter. And it is, what was the name of the show with, it was based on a Stephen King book. The Undoing.
The Outsider?
Is it The Outsider or The Undoing?
No, The Undoing was David E. Kelly. Stephen King's the one that did, and Jason Bateman did some directing on it.
Yes.
That was The Outsider. That was on in January of 2020, February.
Correct. I thought that was spectacular. And while that was science fiction-ish, this show is not. But it is, if you liked The Outsiders, you will probably like this because it's very procedural. It's very driven, and I don't know. I think HBO again is doing some really good work with some of the stuff they put out.
They canceled The Outsider. They wanted to make more of a story based upon that the officer and the psychic and how they would be working together again. And the creators of that show are trying to shop it around now to get somebody else to pick it up for a second season.
Oh, so HBO decided not to do it.
HBO dumped The Outsider moving forward. So like I said, they're shopping it around now. And I'm sure someone like Netflix or, that's something else we should, not to say we're interrupting the Mare of Easttown talk, but one of the things that's important when I think about streaming in the NFL, starting in 2022, initially the reports said that it would be 2023, but starting in 2022, all Thursday night games will be streamed on Amazon and not available on television whatsoever. Now I get television is not the same medium that it was, but as I've said so many times, I hate to stream games because the people I talk to, and I'm sure they have great internet, so that's always the thing. Well, maybe if they had better internet. No, it's always 3 or 4 plays behind.
Mm-hmm.
you're behind. You're not actually live. And if so many people are watching, it's going to buffer at some point. And, that's like, to me, that like, don't force me to watch your raggedy ass fucking stream that's not going to function properly. And there's going to be so many people the first couple of weeks talking about how it kept crashing. And it's going to be a fucking nightmare. I don't know why the NFL did that. And Amazon to have to subsidize this. I mean, Prime's up to like $100 now. Anyway, guaranteed it'll be at least $200 because they've got this new NFL package to pay for. And that's going to start next season, 2022, Thursday Night Football only on Amazon. Terrible idea, in my opinion.
I totally agree with you. This is, when I was a kid, back to that, I would drive past movie theaters, and on the marquee wasn't information about the movie that was playing. It was stop pay TV. And what was happening then is there were movements done by the entertainment industry to make television a premium service like cable television, and where you would have to pay for TV. And the movie exhibitors were totally against that. They were like, well, if you're going to fucking, have people pay for television, then they're not going to be able to afford to come to a movie. And there was a big, big campaign. I mean, movie marquees, commercials, blah, 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 trying to stop, cable television and the whole paying for TV. Well, here we are now in 2021, whatever year we're in, and we're going to have to start paying for football games now. I think it's just fucking off. I mean, we've been paying for football games now. I mean, when you look at what our cable fees are, ESPN is a big portion of your cable bill, and that's
at least you like your local team. Like I have to have Sunday ticket, to watch the Bears. So I'm dropping $300 just to watch the Bear games, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to do so. But at least, like for example, if you're in the Chicagoland area, you'll be able to get your local broadcast of the game on one of your local affiliates. So I won't be able to. I will have to watch it on Amazon. Although, again, I work every Thursday anyway and don't give a fuck about Thursday Night Football in a traditional sense. If the Bears are playing, I'll take off and watch the Bears, which I'll have to do moving forward. But, like, for example, if 2022 rolls around and the Bears somehow don't have a Thursday night game, I won't make a fuck all to me. I just still won't have Amazon. But if they're on, then I'm going to buy it. Just because you're forcing me, that's the only way I can watch the Bears. So that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, it sucks. It sucks big time. And by the way, talking about watching the Bears, the schedule, NFL schedule is going to be released Wednesday, May 12th. And we're going to have a special here in the Barroom Network to share that schedule and talk about, what the possibility is of the Bears going 17-0 and then winning 3 playoff games and being the only team in NFL history to go 20-0. So make sure you circle that. It's going to be right here at the Barroom Network. Hopefully, Dan, you're available to pop in and share your thoughts on the schedule.
I'll be excited. Yeah. Cause I type up my days off. I plan around this, here at my radio job. Like I'll send my boss, it's going to be May 12th or something.
Right. May 12th.
I will send him a letter saying, hey, I need off October 1st, October 3rd, whatever it is, whenever the Bears are playing during the week, Monday or Thursday Night Football, I will already let him know 6 months in advance. I need off for this night. So I plan around that immediately. And with my other job as well. So yeah, the schedule means everything to me. I plan my entire work life around this shit. So, cause I want to be home when the Bears are playing. I don't want to be stuck not knowing, like I said, that was my whole life, not being able to watch the game and just hoping and that they'll show me an update and hoping that the Bears are winning. I don't want to do that. So I want to be home watching it, not under pressure and have my attention somewhere else. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I want to be able to watch it without any distractions.
And I'm really looking forward to watching a game with you, Dan, although I will say that there are times when just past season when we were watching a game, you would text me a lot and you were so fucking negative about what was going on.
I was just negative about, I was like, come on, man. The fucking defense, like the offense would score, and then immediately here comes the siesta, and it was inevitable. It always happened. It would drive me fucking crazy.
Man, oh man. And then Khalil Mack would, not be visible in his play, and then you would send me a text saying this fucking Khalil Mack, and then the next play he gets a sack, and I would write back.
That happened.
How do you like him now?
That happened a bunch, like where I would call Mac out, and then suddenly he would do something. I'm like, well, good. If I'm the catalyst of this happening, which I doubt, but still, somehow, if I'm manifesting this, then I'll do it. I'll be the asshole to make him perform better.
Hey, whatever it takes, I'll gladly take the mantle of being an asshole.
I'm definitely not a Bears fan who ever gives up.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're down 40-0 and it's inevitable, like I'm going to watch until the last play. That doesn't mean I'm not going to complain or bitch, but I never even, if you get one touchdown and you're down like 21 or something, I'm thinking in my head, okay, how much time's left? We can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I never give up. Like I just need one big pass, one big turnover, and I think the Bears are back in it. You just need something to harness momentum. So I'm always positive in that regard, or hopeful, despite the fact I might be bitching about a certain player or play call or whatever, but I'm never just going to quit. Conversely, I'm not the way Phil is either. Like when you all were talking about at the game when he's, telling other people how to cheer and yell and shit like that. Like I'm in a zone, man. I don't think I'd be necessarily fun at the stadium because I don't want to talk to anybody else. Like I'm here to watch the game. Like I'll talk to whoever I'm with. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not there to like make friends with anybody.
Yeah,
I'm not there to drink.
Right.
I'm not there. This isn't a social call. The fucking game is like, I'm here for the game. I spent, $200 to get in for this, not to hang out and drink beer with you. Although I would love to hang out and drink beer with you in theory, but I'm just saying that I'm probably not that fun to watch a game with because I'm like, I'd be like, well, what the fuck are we going to do on third down? I'd be like, Dan asked you if you wanted a beer. I know, but what?
No, I'm with you. I'm 100% the same way that you are. I've gone to a few games with my brother-in-law, and he's like lollygagging around, and let's go get a beef sandwich. And but kickoff is like 2 minutes. Look at the line. No, and I'm like, we should have been in our fucking seats a half hour ago, Bill.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want a fucking beef sandwich. I want to be seated and watching the game, and don't talk to me during the game. He's always talking about they should have never let go of Urlacher. As soon as they let go of Urlacher, the defense went down. I'm like, Bill, he couldn't fucking run anymore.
Yeah, the last image that he had was in that Seattle game in 2012. He pulled his hamstring again, I think.
Yeah.
And didn't play the rest of the season. And if you recall, what made that game so tragic was that the Bears had this lead the whole game. They allow Russell Wilson to go 97 yards to take the lead. And with virtually no time on the clock, Cutler throws a bomb down to Brandon Marshall, who had the wherewithal to dive out of bounds after catching like a 60-yard pass. Robbie makes the field goal, and you go into overtime now, miraculously. And then the Seahawks win the toss and go 80 yards and score again on the vaunted Bears defense.
Yes.
2 straight drives, 97 yards and 80 yards. And that game, if you win that game, the Bears make the playoffs that year.
Yep.
And they had absolutely no excuse for losing that game, kind of like the Detroit game in 2020, where the defense just fucking shit the bed and just wilted. And you can watch it and you can feel it happening. And you're like, you don't want it to happen, but it's happening right in front of you.
I hear you, brother.
Those are some of the worst feelings ever. Now, conversely, when the momentum is on your side, like in that Arizona game in 06, or the San Francisco game in 01, or the Cleveland game in 01, it's magical.
Yeah.
But when you're on the opposite side of that, I mean, you almost hope your heart stops, but don't let this happen. Just let me die and not see it.
I wouldn't go that far.
I mean,
By the way,
God, let the guy that ran out the stands and stabbed Monica Seles, let him come out and attack Aaron Rodgers.
Yes,
not literally. I'm just
figuratively.
Yeah, Charles Martin body slam Jim McMahon. Well, let's have somebody body slam something. Stop this for fuck's sake.
I hear you, brother.
And nothing ever happens, except the other team wins. It's so disheartening. But to go back to TV, then.
By the way, very quickly, 4,000 Clover says, I'd love to hang out and drink with you, Dan. So when Dan comes to Chicago this fall, we're going to set up something for all of Dan's fans. And maybe I can arrange it too. We could get John Buffon to fly in at the same time. Wouldn't that be cool? Buffon, Aguirre, and somebody Badge who lives out east. Also, wouldn't it be cool if we can fly them all in at the same time? We'll work on something like that. We need to have a Barroom Network get together. Dan Aguirre will be signing autographs, and
nobody wants my autograph. But like I said, I'm not. I don't want to say that I'm aloof, but maybe I am. I don't know. Like I'm not as gregarious as the way I presume John Buffon would be, or Dr. Phil Atoshin would be. It's not that I'm not friendly or whatever. Like I'm not the life of the party. You know what I mean? Like I'm more of a guy that hangs out with there's a big party going on, but I'm just with like 3 or 4 guys talking about the game or something. I'm not the life of the party. I'm not trying to get attention.
Yeah, I know that about you, but you are quite the coxman, and everybody is wondering what has been going on with your sex life recently. So tell us what's going on, brother.
I mean, I've been getting laid. I mean, there's nothing spectacular. There's no story. It's just I've gotten mine. So
nothing new, or you want to share any?
I mean, there's no real story to share. It's just I've gotten laid, and it's been good,
And no problems down there?
No problems down there. I've been fully functional.
Any hirsute women that you've been involved with?
What's that?
Hirsute, very hairy.
Oh, no. Everyone pretty much is. It's 2021. Most people aren't really hairy.
Wasn't there like a time that you sent me, or we were sending each other pictures of women with very hairy areas down there?
Yeah, I know. I have that classic photo of that spread of Demi Moore.
Yes,
where she posed for Penthouse in like 1981.
Okay.
And it's the hairiest vagina I think I've ever seen. And it's beautiful area, though, like aesthetically pleasing. I really love the way a hairy vagina looks. And don't get me wrong, like to go down on a lady, it's easier if she's bald. I mean, I'm not going to bullshit you, but the way it looks like on Demi Moore in that photo, like it's just fucking hot to me.
Yeah.
I like the bald ones too. I mean, come on, it's a vagina, but I just think it looks hot, man. It makes me think when I was a kid when ladies were like that, It's like it's throwback pussy.
That is. Every once in a while when I visit a porn site, I'll see what they have in the vintage section, movies from the 70s and 80s, those last movies that were shot on actual film, and women had very bushy areas down there. It's nice to relive that, because that's how I learned how to have sex with women. By the way, Steven Zimmerman says, "What the fuck is wrong with you two sharing photos?" The fuck you guys.
Oh, come on, man. Zim is of the generation where everybody is poly. It's like there are no binary terms. There's no he or she. We're all poly because they've grown up watching porn for free on their phone at any given time of their life, and they're desensitized by sex. So they're going to tell us sharing a photo of Demi Moore in 81 naked is bad when they can pull up porn on their phone at any given minute for free anywhere in the world. So,
well, yeah, I mean, I think one of the things about the era that we live in now, is this whole topic about talking about sex in a woman's vagina area now is frowned upon because, everybody's woke now and so forth. And I battle with that. I don't want to be disrespectful to women in any way, but I do think that these are honest conversations that we should talk about. I mean, the reality is that years ago, women never shaved down there. Women didn't trim down there. And that was captured in the pornographic movies of that era, the 70s and the 80s. And the whole non-grooming thing happened, it was going on for decades beforehand. And so women saw these movies with men, and men saw them alone, and blah, blah, blah. And so I think, I hope that we're not insulting anybody by talking about this, because I think it's just something that happened. And if we have a laugh along the way, so be it. So that's my little rant on that.
Yeah, I mean, if we were, you're right though. It's, again, I'm sounding like a Republican, and I don't want to, but if we were Mark Shanowski having this conversation, he could be fired on TV.
Yeah,
because right. Oh my God, he talked about liking a woman's bush.
Mm-hmm.
It could be completely off air, on a podcast, off duty, and if somebody that has any thing to lose, they can lose just because everyone gets offended.
Right.
So I understand why you have to preface what you're saying, and we don't have to have these discussions. I mean, like I said, I'm comfortable talking about it. It's not something I'm forcing,
Right. James Foster shares a story in the chat. So he says he's playing cards, and this chick that he dated 35 years ago goes under the table and goes off on him for 40 minutes. And it was worth losing that last pot when I let it fly. It was amazing, man. Way to go, James.
Yeah, and women can have these discussions too. Don't forget 20 years ago how big a hit Sex in the City was.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And I share this story very cautiously. My wife knows all about it. When I met my wife when I worked at my last corporate job. And at that time, I was much thinner and took care of myself. I was much more handsome. I would walk down the corporate offices and I would hear women talking about me like they wanted to throw me down on the floor and fuck the shit out of me. And my wife was witness to some of that. So when women talk about being treated, they don't want to be or are sometimes treated like, meat in the workplace, I know exactly what they're talking about because I went through that. I didn't mind it as much as they did. It was nice for my ego, but it does happen that way. And I've heard so many other stories about workplaces being, very sexually open, where the women that work there very openly try to have sex with co-workers and vice versa and so forth. And so it is a very, what's the word? It's not all about women being exploited. There are some work environments, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but there are some work environments where it is very sexually open, and that people flirt and there are relationships, and that it's not that big of a deal. At least right. In the last, I last worked in a corporate atmosphere about 7 years ago. At least it was then. Nowadays, maybe I'm wrong.
Now I've got one woman that I work with specifically. I will see in a few minutes when I go to 911. She and I have worked together for a decade. So now we're not fucking or anything, but we've spoken some filth to each other hundreds of times. I mean, you work 8 hours a night together, and sometimes it's 7 hours of action, and then sometimes it's 7 hours of nothing.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of downtime occasionally. So I was telling her a story. Here goes your sex story. I was telling her, and it's fun now. It wasn't fun then. April the 29th, not only is Jay Cutler's birthday, but it's also my ex-girlfriend Jamie's birthday. And on that very day in 2000, and this is absolutely true, I was just telling LaToysha, whom I work with, this story last week because it was on the anniversary of it. I was driving. I had a Dodge Ram. I had a truck. I literally had a truck from age 17 until I was 34, the same vehicle. I had 249,000 miles on it. And the motherfucker lasted 17 years. Again, 17 to 34. So I was riding in my Dodge Ram on a date, and Jamie's sucking my dick while I'm driving. And we come around a curve and we enter a fucking road check.
Oh my God.
Like a sobriety checkpoint, a DUI checkpoint. And there's no time, man. I was in dress clothes, and it was uncomfortable because it was her birthday. So we had met with her family earlier in the day, so I didn't have a suit on, but I had, like I said, dress pants and dress shoe. So anyway, it's not like you could just, pull down your shorts. So she's really working on me. So I had to take all that shit off.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I'm free balling is what I'm saying. Like, it's all out and there's no time. And the fucking officer comes over there, and mind you, I met Jamie when she was in 9th grade and I was in the 12th.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'm a little bit older than her. Now I've got full, like parental backing and things like that. And her mom even knew that we were having sex, but still, man, this by definition, she's 16 and I'm 19. Again, it doesn't fit like pedophilia or something, because you have to be, at least in my state, you have to exceed 4 years. If the girl's at least 16 and you're not more than 4 years, she can consent legally to sexual activity. But either way, it's iffy, It's like I'm 19, I'm a freshman in college, she's a sophomore in high school now, and she's sucking my dick, and here we are in this road check, and the policeman comes up and he's like, "What's going on here?" I'm like, "Nothing, sir. Nothing at all." And I'm like thinking, because I had a shirt on, I'm like, please don't look down. I'm thinking, but of course they always have that goddamn flashlight. Mm-hmm. Even if it's fucking daylight, they have the flashlight because they're ready to hit you in the fucking head with it if you fuck around. Mm-hmm. And rightfully so, I guess. But so of course he shines down and sees my now soft penis, mind you. And he's like, "Guys, come here." And brings like 3 officers over. So they're all looking at my fucking soft penis now. And they're asking what's going on. And Jamie says something like, he had to pee. And it's just the most ridiculous fucking, like she even said that the other day, because I was like, man, 21 years ago today, we were in this road check together on your birthday. And she's like, "Oh, and I had the worst lie ever." So, but the officer, he tried for like 10 minutes. And I don't advocate lying to an officer. You can get a charge. That's obstructing. But literally, he just kept saying, "What have you been doing?" And I just would not cop to it. I was like, nothing. They all knew I would not admit it. I was like, they'll have to beat this out of me. And the way she was beating it out of me before with her mouth. But there's no way I'm going to admit to this. And finally, after 10 minutes of humiliation, and no clothes on, essentially, they tell us to just get the fuck out of there and go home.
4,000 Clovers. This story is awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, man, we went around a curve. If you can imagine anywhere in the world where it's like you're going around a steep curve, and when you finally can see again, that's where they were. So there was no warning. Like, it's an unsafe place where they were. They could easily have gotten hit. So we come around the corner, and I'm getting fellatio action. Oh my God, it was terrifying. I kept thinking, what if I'm going to be deemed a sexual predator? All these horrible things. I was like, what if they make me get out of my vehicle and all the people see my soft fucking cock? Thankfully, I survived. Jesus. But that was April 29th of 2000. True story.
That is hilarious,
man. They did so.
All right, well, before we go, I wanted to, because I got maybe 12 minutes or so.
All righty.
I wanted to touch on, I did watch 2001, A Space Odyssey.
Oh, yes.
And I watched the sequel, 2010, as well.
Okay.
2001 has got to me, it's like one of those. And again, I like Twin Peaks. I reference that a lot, but like that Kubrick film is like David Lynch before David Lynch is David Lynch. It's just like purposefully doing things ambiguously to make you ponder and not explain. And again, I don't mind that to a certain extent, but when you're purposely vague over and over and over, it kind of pisses me off because it's just like, I'll never tell you. I'm going to make you ponder my movie and I will never, ever cop to it. But fortunately, after the film was over, two things happened.
Okay.
A, I was reading interpretations of the film.
Okay.
And Kubrick, I spoke about the ending and stuff at length to somebody that was going to be used in a documentary and never was.
Oh.
And it was unearthed in like 2018.
Okay.
So I didn't see a video, but I read his quotes on it. So that helped me understand the ending a little bit. And then when I watch the sequel like spills it all out for you.
Okay.
Like the sequel says, well, the guy, because I was like, what happened to the first doctor or whatever, the first astronaut, the guy that Roy Scheider plays in the sequel? Because they're just like, they're at the monolith or whatever, and then they suddenly hear a radio frequency and it cuts. And then you're on to another sect of people.
Right.
And so I thought maybe he was trying to give us, with the next sect of people, the next astronauts, sort of his analysis of maybe the world being too reliant on technology, kind of the same story the Terminator gives you a little bit.
Right.
With Hal, but that wasn't the case. It was, as we watched the sequel, Hal malfunctions because the people make him lie. So the computer in turn doesn't know how to be deceitful to the crew, so it makes him paranoid, and he develops all these human-like qualities because he doesn't know how to be a lying asshole, basically. So the human being corrupted the computer there. And again, it's not clear at the end of the first one what the fuck happened. It's not clear what happened to the character at the beginning. It's not clear why Hal wanted the other guy killed, and then the ending is certainly not clear. You're like, what the fuck did I just watch? I know I was reading people were eating mouths full of acid and watching it at the theater. Visually it's incredible, especially the context of, I'm assuming they filmed this in like 66 or 7. Right. He probably spent a year on post-production because it's not like there's CGI then.
Right.
So the film comes out in 68 and visually it's unfucking believable, especially in the context of when this came out. Just unbelievable. But it was without any context or explanation. So I did like in 2010 how the guy, the same actor, thankfully, who played the astronaut at the end of it, I forget his name, David or something.
David. Yeah.
Yeah, he's back in the second one, and even though in reality it's almost 2 decades later, and again, there's no CGI, he looks the same. So, and he, he's talking to the crew, he's talking to his mom, his wife, and all these things. It's such a good, the sequel, albeit not as good as the first one, it made the first one better because it gave me so much context that I kept wondering what I missed, like what happened, like, something like what could have happened. All these questions are answered and spelled out for you in the second one, which is antithetical to anything that Kubrick would have ever done, or David Lynch for that matter. They don't want you to know the definitive truth.
Correct. I have, I think, a slightly different interpretation of the movie, but I want to share this first. Luis Villaseñor posted in the chat room while you were sharing your sex story. He asked the question, so is the sex story a metaphor for why Mitchell Trubisky didn't succeed in Chicago?
In what way? But that's good. It's funny, but could we actually make that into Mitch somehow? I don't know.
I don't know either, but I agree, and I've seen 2001: A Space Odyssey a number of times, and it is a bit of a challenge to get through. Although, if you appreciate the visuals of the story and the soundtrack of the story, then it's not that difficult. And so, what you're left with is trying to figure out what all these metaphors mean. the monolith to me clearly represented God. The monolith is God. This thing appears in prehistoric times when the man ape is fighting to find intelligence. The first sequence is 30 minutes of these apes just who can't feed themselves, they're dying off and so forth, and all of a sudden a monolith occurs, and there's this great music, and the monolith and the star and the sun and the moon align, and all of a sudden there's this power that this one particular ape gets, and so he learns how to use a bone as a tool. He starts banging it. He's banging it, and he starts to think, wow, I can use this to beat the fuck out of somebody. And all of a sudden, a bunch of other apes show up, and they try to attack these apes. But this one ape who found this moon that was kind of motivated by the monolith and the star and the sun being aligned together, he takes that bone and starts to beat the shit out of this other ape. And now they got food. They're eating the meat of this other people. And then this ape now in victory and with this discovery of knowledge, he throws the bone up in the air, and in what has been called the greatest edit in movie history, the bone up in the air cuts to a spaceship in the year 2001, a gigantic, beautifully designed spaceship. And it shows the evolution of man's thinking, that it went from prehistoric man using a bone to beat the shit out of somebody to create food, and that now that knowledge has taken us into space. Now, in 2001, there's all these signals coming from the moon. What the fuck's going on the moon? And so the investigators are sent to the moon to find out, and it's the fucking monolith that is there again, and it's sending out these radio signals, and they're trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Oh, at the same time, the people are being sent to Jupiter because these signals are being sent to Jupiter. And so on this spaceship, there is a fucking computer, artificial intelligence that is now taking over human thinking and has taken over command of the ship. And so Kubrick is trying to say that the evolution of man from thinking for himself is now under attack, or that's not the right word, is now being challenged by artificial intelligence.
I get that. And let me just interrupt one second, because I don't have but a few minutes. The only thing, and I agree with everything you're saying, and not to say that I was going to, articulate it the same way, but, I got all that. But what I was fixating on is like, well, what happened to the first crew? Because they start to hearing that signal.
Right.
And then it just cuts to the next crew. And that's the kind of shit that I just obsess over.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, how is this going to relate to the last crew? There's got to be some link. Like there's no way that's just ignored. Yeah. So I'm sitting there almost annoyed that I don't know how the two stories relate yet.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I'd have to watch the film again, and I haven't seen it in a few years to answer that question. But it is a.
Well, I know now
because you saw 2010.
Yeah, well, even so, watching the rest of the film, like you kind of get some answers to it. It's almost like when you first see Pulp Fiction, you're like, how is this going to get back to the fucking robbery? And wait, Travolta's dead, but he's back. What? But after you've seen it, it 100 times. I mean, there's no problem understanding it at all. But when I was first watching it, that's what I kept thinking, like, why this vague shit? Like not, but again, I like it. I do, but I was just explaining when I was watching it. That's what I kept thinking. How are these two tales, like, how do they relate? How are they going to overlap?
Sure.
And for the fact that Scheider comes back, Roy Scheider's in the second one playing the guy from the first crew.
Right.
To me, that made it so much better for me. Right. It made the first one even better because it gave me so much more understanding of the first film.
I got to tell you, when you mentioned the Pulp Fiction thing, I got a good friend. I haven't seen him in years, but we used to golf a lot together. His name was Walter, and Walter is just this fucking tremendous athlete. I mean, he would hit the golf ball 350 yards. I mean, strong and athletic and stuff. And he just picked up a golf club, and all of a sudden it's just hitting it 350 yards. And I've been playing golf longer, and I can't hit it 250 yards straight anyways. And so, we're talking about Pulp Fiction, and he goes, man, that was a great fucking movie. But, you know, what I can't understand how, you know, they shoot John Travolta and then all of a sudden he comes back. You know, I didn't get that. I didn't understand it. I'm like, you fucking idiot. the film is told, the story is told out of order. He looks at me like, I always would make fun of him because I mean, this guy picked up women he just would look at a woman would start melting. We would go to Miami every winter to play golf, and we would go out to the clubs, and the women were just all fawning over him because he was such a good looking, muscular guy and so forth. And here I am, you know, begging women to look at me and stuff. And so he would, you know, make fun of me. And so my only way to come back at him was saying, you're a fucking dumb jock, you know? And so when he tells me with John Travolta, I for the next 18 holes of golf, I just kept busting his balls about that. Do you ever have that problem, Dan, where you just walk into a club and the women are just fawning over you?
No, that's not my thing. There's a line that Jim Belushi says in About Last Night to Rob Lowe that it makes me feel like, oh, that's me. He tells Rob Lowe, he's like, you know, your problem is, Rob Lowe's name is Danny in the movie. He's like, you know what your problem is, Danny? It's your face. And Rob Lowe's like, what the fuck? He's like, no, he's like, women have to compete with you. You're so good looking. I mean, and
that is a great scene. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and he goes, but when they're with me, I make them look pretty. There's no competition, so they want to be with me because I make them look good. Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
That's a great line.
That's me. I'm Jim Belushi in that regard.
Greatest line in that movie is when Jim Belushi is at the club and he's trying to pick up Demi Moore's friend, played by Elizabeth Perkins, great actor. And he asks her, what do you do? And she says, you know, I do this, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, what do you do? And he goes, do you know anything about boxing? And she goes, no, I'm the heavyweight champion of the world.
My favorite line with Elizabeth Perkins is when she's just on Rob Lowe's ass over and over and over. She's mad because Demi Moore's moving out. And he's got this thing. He's moving. She's like, no, that's mine. That's mine. That's not Debbie's, you know, whatever. And he clearly loses his cool. And he's got this thing in his hand. It's like a hook. He's like, you know what? You take this thing, whatever the fuck this thing is, and shove it up your ass.
Oh, that is a good movie. About Last Night. Who directed that? Do you remember who directed that?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact name, but it's the guy that did the show 30-something on ABC, which was really good. 87, 89, 90, somewhere through there. Yeah. Really good show. And the guy, Ken Olin, is a huge liberal, so many of you listening will hate him. But Aldo and I, he's a great follow on Twitter for us on the left. Yeah. But I unfortunately have to go in a second. I really should be going now. But to finish out the 2010 thing, I thought it was a nice touch for them to basically use the monolith as a means to have a peace agreement to end the Cold War, which is kind of corny, but at the same regard, it becomes another sun, and that is the justification for the peace within the film, which was kind of, you know, like I said, it was sort of corny, but I liked it as well. And the only question I still had was the guy that's in the second one. I told you that he's the guy at the end of the first one that's going through all the images and stuff.
Right.
How I guess he loses sense of time and becomes old, and I guess he dies, and you know, and now he's talking and he's like, yes, I know that I used to be David, but I don't remember things as David. Like, what the fuck? You know, like he knows that he used to be David, but who is he now? You know, that's the kind of thing I still ponder. You know, he looks like David, but he's not David, but he knows he used to be David.
It is.
It's a mind fuck, but in a good way.
It really is. Well, and the original movie 2001, A Space Odyssey, when the studio first screened it, they were like, "What the fuck is this movie about? We don't understand." And so they screened it for audiences out in the West Coast. And it just so happened that there were a lot of guys dropping LSD during the movie. And so when they fill out these cards to get people's assessment, they were like, wow, that movie was trippy. And so that's how they marketed it to that audience in 1969, because there was a huge audience doing drugs at the time. And so the posters would say 2001 A Space Odyssey, it's a trip. And so people the movie studio was basically encouraging you to drop a tab of acid and see the movie. And I didn't at the time because I was only 10 years old, but several years later I did. I drop a tab of acid and see the movie at the Village Theater in Chicago, and it was quite the experience.
I really got to go, but my only comment on that, I don't want to take anything that makes me like, even if drinking beer made me hallucinate, count me the fuck out. Like I don't want to hallucinate. There's so many people I deal with in my other job on meth. This is true. I got to go, but I want to finish out what I was going to. We had a guy last week. We had multiple callers say that they could hear a woman screaming for help. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. This guy's watched Fight Club too much. Clearly they go up to this guy. He's in some fucking shed, like in his backyard, like a building, like you would, keep your lawnmower in or something, and he's fighting himself. He's on meth, hitting himself and acting out both parts as a woman screaming and the male taunting her. How high do you have to be to do some dumb shit like that? No shit. Count me the fuck out. I don't want any part of that.
Yeah, it's terrible. Get out of here and go save some lives, brother.
All right, well, let me think what I was going to say, though, real quick.
While you're thinking of that, I want to let people know that Larry Borum did contact me, and he said, I can't tonight. And I said, thanks for the response. We'll try you again in a week or two. God bless. And he said, will do. So he has made a soft commitment to come back on to come on the show. So hopefully we'll have him in a week or two.
Cool. Well, the last thing I was going to say, two things. One, I have ready to roll on the TCM app because your recommendation that the Year of Living Dangerously or whatever. Mm-hmm. But the other one I was going to watch is also a Kubrick film that I haven't seen called, I think, Barry Lyndon.
Oh my gosh.
That's on HBO Max right now. So I'm probably going to watch that tonight, assuming that, I have a down period where I'm not like just overwhelmed for 8 hours.
Yeah, well, if and I do recommend. When you see these movies, you seeing them on the phone or your computer or what?
No, we have smart TVs at work, so I can I use the Wi-Fi and project it onto the TV.
Yeah, so it's good quality.
Yeah.
Because that's a movie you really need to see in the best fidelity possible. Because part of its charm, just like 2001. A Space Odyssey, is the photography in that movie is just sensational, but it is a bit on the boring side. So be prepared to either focus really hard to see what the metaphor is and the symbolism is, or you're not going to be interested in it.
I have a good attention span. I'll figure it out. Hopefully I'll like it then, and maybe we'll be back here Monday. I should have a normal work life next week.
Sounds good, brother.
All right, and be well and have a good night.
All right, brother. Take care. That is Dan Aguirre. He is my buddy. I love doing this show with him. And we're scheduled to be back next Monday, although if we are, it's going to be late. We've got to work out some things on the schedule. And yes, Luis, that was Larry Borum. He did say that he'd like to come on to the show, although if he listens to the show and he listens to Dan's sex life story, maybe he won't come on, but it would be cool if he came on and talked football. I'm also trying to get some of the old-time football players, because Dan's recall of the 1970s and 80s and 90s football games, especially the 80s and 90s, is so phenomenal. And he could I would love to just hear him talk to somebody like Jim McMahon or Jay Cutler, quarterbacks that he really loved a lot. Jason McKee, Olin Kreutz, you guys do a podcast. We highlighted your podcast. Dan interviewing those guys would be a treat. So anyway, that's our show for tonight. I do want to let you know that tomorrow on Wednesday morning at 9:30, it is the Mike North Advantage. And Mike North, for those of you who don't know, I know we're getting a lot of new followers here at the Barroom Network. Mike is an icon of Chicago sports radio. He's also had nationwide shows, and he's affectionately referred to as the raging mouth of Chicago sports. He will be here at 9:30 a.m. He's got a lot of thoughts to share on the Chicago Bears. He's a big Mitch Trubisky fan and feels like the Bears should have never let Trubisky go. I think he likes the choice of Justin Fields, but he's got some thoughts to share. After that, it'll be at 12 o'clock. The former director of college scouting for the Chicago Bears, Greg Gabriel, will be here with me, and we will talk about those draft picks. Greg has collected information on all of the picks and some of the undrafted free agents, so it'll be really cool to listen to a former pro football scout and director of personnel share his thoughts on this draft class. And then at 2 p.m., the Parisi brothers, Vinny and Jay, will talk Blackhawks hockey, NHL hockey, and they're going to give a special tribute to the goaltender Ryan Miller, who just retired and had a great send-off by the NHL just recently. So we got a lot of great programming just tomorrow on Wednesday here. And what time is that? With the Greg Gabriel, the former scout, that one is on at noon Central. 12 o'clock Central. And if you can't catch us live, hopefully you can catch us live, because that way you can throw Greg a question, Luis, and I'll make sure it gets on. But if you can't catch it, like with all of our program, it's available on demand, video at Barroom Network, and the audio out on YouTube, Spotify, you name it, we're everywhere. So I think that's it. I am going to say goodbye. I am going to finish my little Bacardi, Puerto Rican rum, and post the show on audio and get some rest. I'll be back here in the morning with Mike North. Thank you all for everybody that tuned in live and interacted with us. Really appreciate it very much. And those of you listening on demand, I hope you enjoyed the show. Take care, everyone.